Chapter 3004. These creatures were of the cold attribute, and they were like fish in water in the cold underworld Qi. Moreover, in such an environment, these creatures could unleash 120% of their strength, making them stronger than the outside world. As for others, if they didn't control the cold attribute divine grade divine power, their strength would be greatly reduced. No wonder it was called a forbidden area. It was indeed dangerous for ordinary sky prides to enter. Boom! Lu Ming was flying when suddenly, the mountain shook. Then, Lu Ming saw an iceberg flying from afar, smashing towards Lu Ming. Nestle, Lu Ming was shocked and quickly dodged, retreating 100 miles in an instant to avoid the iceberg. Boom! It was really an iceberg, with a height of 1,000 meters. It smashed heavily in front of Lu Ming, causing the ground to shake. Whoosh whoosh, there was a whistling sound in the air, and then, a large black shadow was cast from the sky. Another iceberg smashed towards Lu Ming, and it wasn't just one, but several in a row. What's going on? Lu Ming was speechless, and he kept retreating, but the iceberg continued to smash down, and finally, there was an iceberg that Lu Ming couldn't avoid. Moon slashing. Lu Ming held the spear with both hands and slashed it down. Boom! The spear light hit the iceberg, and there was a violent explosion. The iceberg shattered, and Lu Ming was sent flying by a terrifying force. After retreating 100 miles, his blood and qi were in turmoil. What a terrifying force, what is it? Lu Ming stared ahead. One should know that he was in the state of the ancient god body, and his strength was shocking, but he was still almost injured. Roar roar, at this moment, a roar came from afar, and then, a huge creature rushed towards him. That's, Lu Ming's eyes narrowed. This time, it wasn't an iceberg, but a giant ape. This giant ape was huge, and it was a few thousand meters tall, even bigger than the iceberg. Lu Ming knew that the giant ape was the one who had thrown those icebergs at him. Boom! The giant ape stepped on an iceberg, and the iceberg exploded. Ice shards flew in all directions, and the ground shook violently. A ferocious aura surged out and rushed towards Lu Ming. A pair of huge eyes stared at Lu Ming, filled with killing intent. Roar! The giant ape roared and stomped on the ground, creating a large crater. Its huge body pounced towards Lu Ming. Lu Ming's ancient god body was over 200 meters tall, but in front of the giant ape, he couldn't even be considered a baby. A fist that was bigger than a mountain peak blasted towards Lu Ming, bringing with it a terrifying gust of wind. Retreat, retreat, Lu Ming didn't dare to take it head-on. He quickly retreated. However, the opponent's fist energy was too powerful. The air was constantly exploding, and Lu Ming's speed was greatly affected. In the end, Lu Ming could only take it head-on. Supernova. Lu Ming used his strongest move. A huge spear radiance burst out and pierced towards the giant ape. When the spear radiance was about to reach the giant ape, it exploded. Boom! The energy overflowed, but Lu Ming felt a terrifying force rushing towards him. Lu Ming's body trembled, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. Retreat! Lu Ming used this force to retreat quickly. In addition to the speed of the Nine Heavens Garuda technique, he retreated over 10,000 miles in an instant. Then, Lu Ming turned around and rushed towards the back. Roar! The giant ape roared and chased after Lu Ming. This giant ape has terrifying strength. I'm afraid that it has awakened a power similar to the origin divine power factor in its body. Lu Ming pondered. The various living beings now could be considered the descendants of the primordial divine spirits. They more or less contained a trace of the primordial divine spirit's bloodline. Even those desolate beasts and divine beasts were the same. Therefore, many desolate beasts and ferocious beasts would awaken a power similar to the origin divine power factor. It was very terrifying. Obviously, this giant ape had awakened a similar power. Its strength was very shocking. Lu Ming was no match for it. Even after using the supernova move, he was still no match for it and was injured instantly. Lu Ming transformed into the Nine Heavens Garuda technique and flew rapidly. However, the giant ape's speed was very shocking. It chased after Lu Ming closely. Soon, a few minutes passed. Swoosh! Suddenly, Lu Ming saw a sword radiance rushing towards him. It's her. Lu Ming's eyes moved. The owner of the sword radiance was the absolute beauty who chased after Lu Ming previously. Seeing this woman, Lu Ming was not shocked but happy. Without thinking, he rushed towards the absolute beauty. In the next moment, the absolute beauty also saw Lu Ming. When she saw Lu Ming rushing towards her, she could not help but be stunned. She did not understand why Lu Ming suddenly rushed towards her. However, she immediately understood because she saw the giant ape. She knew that Lu Ming wanted to use her to fight against the giant ape. However, was that possible? The absolute beauty's eyes were filled with cold light. She was about to attack with the giant ape and kill Lu Ming. However, at this moment, Lu Ming opened his mouth and shouted, "Wife, it's great that you're here. Let's kill that giant ape together." What? Wife? The absolute beauty was stunned again. In the next moment, she reacted and screamed, "You, shameless!" However, at this moment, Lu Ming had already rushed close to the absolute beauty. Roar! The giant ape roared and stretched out a huge palm. It grabbed at the ground and a huge iceberg was pulled out. With a wave of its hand, the huge iceberg smashed towards Lu Ming and enveloped the absolute beauty. "Wife, help!" Lu Ming shouted and dodged left and right to avoid the iceberg. This was Lu Ming's plan. This giant ape had such a high cultivation level and its spiritual intelligence was definitely very high. It would definitely be able to understand what they were saying. Therefore, when Lu Ming shouted "wife," the giant ape would definitely mistake the absolute beauty for Lu Ming's group. Naturally, its attack would also envelop the absolute beauty. Obviously, Lu Ming's plan succeeded. Being enveloped by the iceberg, the absolute beauty could only fight back. A dazzling sword light burst forth, cleaving the iceberg into two halves. This crazy woman is really powerful. Lu Ming thought to himself. Just now, he had experienced the terror of the giant ape. However, the absolute beauty split the iceberg in half with a sword. Her strength was terrifying. The giant ape also looked at the absolute beauty. The absolute beauty gave it a strong pressure and made it instinctively feel a sense of danger. Therefore, the giant ape let out a loud roar and pounced on the beautiful woman, abandoning Lu Ming. To it, Lu Ming was not a threat. On the contrary, the absolute beauty was. Of course, it had to get rid of the danger first. A mountain-like fist blasted towards the absolute beauty. The absolute beauty could only fight back. Clang! The sound of a sword rang through the nine heavens. The terrifying glass-like sword radiance was 10,000 meters long and slashed towards the giant ape. Boom! Boom! The two of them engaged in a fierce battle. The place was in a mess and was razed to the ground. Chapter 3005. Wow, this strength is even stronger than the Dark Knight Devil King. Lu Ming clicked his tongue when he saw the battle between the absolute beauty and the giant ape. Although the absolute beauty and the giant ape had not reached the Divine King realm, their combat strength had definitely reached the Divine King realm. An ordinary first-layer Divine King realm expert like the Dark Knight Devil King was probably not as strong as them. This was a supreme talent that could fight across a large realm. Wife, help your husband block this beast first. I'll go find someone to help me. Of course, Lu Ming would not miss such a good opportunity. After saying that, his figure flashed and he fled without a trace. Despicable, shameless, the absolute beauty shouted angrily and almost vomited blood. Her beautiful face was flushed red. She swore in her heart that the next time she saw Lu Ming, she would chop Lu Ming into 8 pieces, no, 10 pieces to vent her anger. She gritted her teeth when she thought of Lu Ming calling her his wife. Does this guy know? Impossible, even if he knows, I'll still kill him. The absolute beauty gritted her teeth and then focused on dealing with the giant ape in front of her. Lu Ming flew all the way. Not long after, Lu Ming transformed into his human form. Using the ancient god body had consumed a lot of his stamina. After transforming into his human form, Lu Ming flew for a while and then found a hidden ice cave. Lu Ming flew in. After looking around for a while, he found that there were no other living creatures in the ice cave. Lu Ming moved a piece of ice and blocked the entrance of the ice cave. He then sat down cross-legged and circulated the universe myriad Dao technique to recover. After a few days, Lu Ming's divine power and stamina had recovered to their peak. It's a pity that little ball can't come in here. Otherwise, I wouldn't be in such a sorry state. Lu Ming sighed. Those below the Divine King realm couldn't enter Star Crescent Ancient City. Little Ball was a metallic life form, so it naturally couldn't enter. Otherwise, with Little Ball's strength, it could easily suppress existences like the Absolute Beauty and the giant ape. I must quickly find a treasure of extreme cold and increase my strength. Lu Ming secretly gritted his teeth. During this period of time, he had been repeatedly hunted down, and he really had a belly full of anger. Getting up and leaving the ice cave, Lu Ming continued deeper into the cold dark lands. Lu Ming, the frigid qi in the 8,000 miles ahead is extremely dense. There might be a treasure of extreme cold. The sound of the quantifying formula rang out. The measure character formula was extremely sensitive to energy fluctuations. Lu Ming asked the measure character formula to help him find treasures of extreme cold energy. 8,000 li ahead. Lu Ming's eyes lit up, and he flew forward. Not long after, an ice lake appeared in front of him. The lake was not too big, but the frosty aura it emanated was shockingly dense. It was many times denser than other places. Lu Ming, the source of the cold air is under the ice lake. However, I'm afraid there's a creature guarding the lake. The quantifying formula said. There's a living being guarding it. What's its cultivation level? Lu Ming asked. I don't know. You can go down and find out for yourself. The quantifying formula said. Lu Ming was speechless. In the end, he decided to explore. Since he was already here, it would be a pity if he did not explore. With a plop, Lu Ming rushed into the ice lake. Not long after, splash. The ice lake churned violently, stirring up thousands of waves. A giant white python could be seen rolling in it. At the same time, rays of spear light burst out from the ice lake. They were extremely dazzling. After a long while, whoosh! A figure rushed out of the ice lake. It was Lu Ming. After Lu Ming rushed out, he used the Nine Heavens Kuanpeng technique and transformed into a Kuanpeng, quickly leaving this place. Splash! A giant python rushed out of the ice lake. It was 1,000 meters long and roared at the sky. However, it did not pursue in the end. It swam around the ice lake for a while before returning to the ice lake. Thousands of miles away from the ice lake, Lu Ming was sitting on a frozen mountain. He opened his palm and there was a crystal stone in his palm. It was the size of a longan and exuded an astonishing cold air. This was the treasure that Lu Ming brought out of the ice lake. Old Liang, how is this ice jade crystal? How much energy can it help you refine? Lu Ming asked expectantly. Not much. The quantifying formula only replied with 2 words. Not much? Lu Ming was a little disappointed. Although this ice jade crystal is a treasure of the extreme cold attribute, it can't compare to the ice jade heart, nor can it compare to the cold liquid you obtained before. It's only stronger than the cold moon stone, and its size is too small. The quantifying formula explained. It seems that I have to continue looking. Forget it, you can absorb this ice jade crystal first. I will continue to look for other cold attribute treasures. Lu Ming said. Then, he let the quantifying formula absorb the ice jade crystal. In the next half a month, Lu Ming appeared in various parts of the forbidden underworld chill, looking for extreme cold treasures. He found a total of 3 treasures. Unfortunately, their levels were not very high. They were all treasures about the same level as the ice jade crystal. It could only be said that they were better than nothing. On this day, Lu Ming was walking in an ice valley. The quantifying formula told him that the cold energy in this ice valley was very abnormal and very dense. After walking for a while, he did not find anything abnormal. There was no creature guarding this place, which surprised Lu Ming. This is the 9-petal ice lotus. Suddenly, Lu Ming's eyes lit up. At the end of the ice valley, there was a lotus growing on a wall. It was crystal clear like jade and exuded a strong chill. This was the first time Lu Ming saw a plant in the forbidden underworld chill. Moreover, it was a cold attribute divine medicine. The 9-petal ice lotus had a total of 9 petals. It was very different from other lotus flowers. However, Lu Ming had seen records in an ancient book that the 9-petal ice lotus was the best cold attribute divine medicine. Lu Ming was overjoyed. This 9-petal ice lotus was definitely a better cold attribute treasure than the ice jade crystal. After the quantifying formula absorbed it, it would definitely help him refine a lot of energy from the stellar core. Lu Ming's figure flashed and stepped out. He formed a giant hand with his divine power and picked the 9-petal ice lotus. However, at this moment, the sky whistled and several figures appeared in the sky above the ice valley. There were 5 young men and women in white robes. As soon as they appeared, their eyes fell on the 9-petal ice lotus in Lu Ming's hand. "Kid, hand over the 9-petal ice lotus." A young man shouted coldly. A cold aura shrouded Lu Ming. "I found it first. Why should I hand it to you?" Lu Ming said indifferently. "You found it first? What a joke. We found this 9-petal ice lotus long ago. Previously, there was a desolate beast guarding this place. We lured the desolate beast away, allowing you to have your way. Do you understand?" A young man with snow-white hair said coldly. "Lured the desolate beast away?" Lu Ming was stunned, but in the next moment, he knew that the other party was lying. The other party's reason did not seem problematic, but upon careful thought, it was full of loopholes. The other party had 5 people. Was there a need for 5 people to act together to lure the desolate beast away? Chapter 3006. There were a total of 5 of them. There was no need for all 5 of them to lure the wild beasts away. As long as a few of them lured the wild beasts away, the others could easily take the 9-petal ice lotus. Who would be so stupid to lure the wild beasts away together and leave the treasure here? Therefore, Lu Ming thought about it and knew that the other party was lying. With a cold sneer, Lu Ming kept the 9-petal ice lotus in his storage ring. "Kid, it seems like you're not going to hand it over?" The white-haired youth's eyes were cold, and the cold aura around him was getting stronger. Obviously, the other party was also a cold attributed divine grade divine force, so he was not afraid of the cold underworld chi here. "Since I got it, how can I hand it over?" Lu Ming smiled faintly. Very good, very good." The white-haired youth nodded and said, "Lu Ming, your talent is not bad, and you've passed the gate of heaven. However, your cultivation is only at the 4th level of the heavenly god realm. Do you think you can take the 9-petal ice lotus in front of us?" With that, the white-haired youth released his aura completely. Half-step divine king. The white-haired youth's cultivation was at the half-step divine king realm. However, Lu Ming could tell at a glance that the other party had not awakened the divine origin factor. At the same time, the others surrounded Lu Ming in a flash, each releasing a powerful aura. Another half-step divine king. The other 3 were also 9th level of the heavenly god realm. However, no one had awakened the divine origin factor. It was not easy to awaken the divine origin factor. There were so many geniuses below the divine king realm in the universal camp. Previously, there were only 4 people who passed the gate of heaven. Including the beautiful lady, there were only 5 of them. Naturally, they would not encounter a person who had awakened the divine origin factor. Lu Ming squinted his eyes, but he was not afraid. As long as the divine origin factor was not awakened, Lu Ming was not afraid of even a half-step divine king realm genius. Even if he could not defeat them, he could still escape. Lu Ming, I gave you a chance just now, but you did not cherish it. Now, not only the 9-petal ice lotus, but also the other things on you. You have to hand them over. Also, let us search your dantian and we can consider sparing your life. The white-haired young man spoke again, his eyes flashing with greed. He thought of Lu Ming, who was able to step through the heaven gate as a level 4 celestial deity. He definitely had a great opportunity on him. Now, not only did he want the 9-petal ice lotus, but he also wanted Lu Ming's fortune. In fact, he even had an even more vicious plan in mind. He planned to wait for Lu Ming to hand over all the treasures, then cripple Lu Ming's cultivation and imprison Lu Ming. Then, he would slowly extract all the secrets from Lu Ming. At the thought of being able to obtain Lu Ming's secret and soar to the sky, his heart was burning with passion. It seems like your ambitions are not small. Lu Ming smiled coldly and prepared to find an opening to escape. But at this moment, Lu Ming's expression changed as he looked up at the sky. Whoosh! In the sky, a sword light appeared. Then, the figure of a beautiful woman appeared in the air. Lu Ming's face immediately turned bitter. Who else could it be if it wasn't the beautiful woman? Enemies are bound to meet on a narrow road, we've stumbled into each other again. Lu Ming's mouth was filled with bitterness. Lu Ming had just been surrounded by the white-haired young man and his crew, and now the beautiful woman had shown up. The situation was not looking good for him. He was confident that he could escape from the white-haired young man and his crew, but with the beautiful woman here, it was impossible for him to escape. This is troublesome. Lu Ming mumbled. That being said, it was impossible for him to give up. He quickly thought of a way to escape. Such a beautiful woman. When the white-haired young man and the others saw the beautiful woman, they couldn't help but be slightly stunned, revealing stunned expressions. All of you, piss off. The beautiful woman glanced at the white-haired young man and his crew and snapped coldly. The white-haired young man and his crew wore unpleasant expressions upon hearing this. It seems like you're on the same side as this kid. Chick, I'm afraid you won't be able to save him on your own. The white-haired young man said with a hollow laugh. Who wants to save him? I'm going to kill him. The beautiful woman said coldly. Kill him? This time, the white-haired young man and his crew were stunned again. They initially thought that the beautiful woman was here to save Lu Ming, but they did not expect that she was here to kill Lu Ming. Miss, you're here to kill him? Huh, it seems like we're kindred spirits. This brat stole our treasure, so we're going to kill him as well. Why don't I kill this brat on your behalf, so that he won't dirty your hands? The white-haired young man laughed loudly. Upon hearing that the beautiful woman was also here to kill Lu Ming, the white-haired young man immediately changed his attitude and looked as if he wanted to get closer to the beautiful woman. If he wants to die, he can only die in my hands. You're not qualified to kill him. However, the beautiful woman did not appreciate his kindness and continued to say coldly. Huh? Lu Ming was also stunned. He could not figure out the beautiful woman's plan at all. Since she wanted to kill Lu Ming, what was the difference between her killing him and the others? Why did Lu Ming have to die in her hands? At this moment, even Lu Ming could not help but wonder if he had really done something wrong to the beautiful woman when he was drunk. However, he had no recollection of it at all. If it was true, it would be a great loss for him. The white-haired young man and his crew were also stunned. They did not understand what the beautiful woman meant. It seems like you're going to save him. The white-haired young man said coldly. He guessed that the beautiful woman wanted to save Lu Ming and deliberately said that she wanted to kill Lu Ming to deceive them. Get lost. The beautiful woman shouted coldly. Humph, you're indeed in cahoots. Then I'll take you down too. The white-haired young man's face darkened. A powerful aura shrouded the beautiful woman. Bang! Then, the white-haired young man took a step forward and stretched out his palm. A huge palm condensed out of ice and was filled with a terrifying chill. It grabbed at the beautiful woman. You're overestimating yourself. The beautiful woman's eyes turned cold and an ancient aura burst out. Swoosh! Then, the beautiful woman waved her hand and a sword radiance appeared and slashed at the white-haired young man. With a puff, the huge palm condensed by the white-haired young man was split into two. The sword radiance did not stop and continued to slash at the white-haired young man. Origin Divine Power Factor. You've awakened the Origin Divine Power Factor, the white-haired young man shouted in horror and retreated. At the same time, a shield flew out from between his eyebrows. Clang! The sword radiance slashed at the shield and sparks flew. The shield was sent flying and a deep crack appeared on it. The white-haired young man's face turned pale. That was an upper rank 9 divine defensive artifact and it was broken by the beautiful woman's sword. The other young men looked ghastly pale and fear appeared on their faces. They could not help but retreat and distance themselves from the beautiful woman. The beautiful woman took a step forward and her sword radiance soared into the sky. Wait a minute. It's a misunderstanding. It's all a misunderstanding, the white-haired young man shouted in horror. Chapter 3007. The white-haired young man screamed in fear and retreated. Get lost. The beautiful lady shouted coldly. She did not attack immediately but her aura became stronger. All right, let's go, let's go. The white-haired young man said. Although he was unhappy, he did not dare to fight with the beautiful lady even though there were 5 of them and he was a half-step divine king. Although they were all half-step divine kings, there was a huge difference in their combat strength between those who had awakened their divine origin and those who had. Even if the 5 of them joined forces, they would not be a match for the beautiful lady. Therefore, although he was furious, he could only grit his teeth and avoid her. Wait! At this moment, Lu Ming shouted. He was calling out to the white-haired young man and the others. What? The white-haired young man looked at Lu Ming. Brothers, don't go. Let's deal with this crazy woman together. If you help me, I will give you all of my treasures. Lu Ming said with a smile. All of your treasures? The white-haired young man and the others were stunned and their eyes were burning with passion. They were tempted by Lu Ming's treasures. However, when they looked at the beautiful lady, they hesitated. They would have to risk their lives to deal with the beautiful lady. The white-haired young man looked around and decided to retreat. Although the treasures were important, they were not as important as his life. Therefore, the white-haired young man wanted to reject the offer. However, the beautiful lady did not give him the chance to do so. If you want to join forces to deal with me, I will kill all of you together. The beautiful lady shouted coldly and waved the combat sword in her hand. Rays of sword light shot out. These rays of sword light shrouded Lu Ming, the white-haired young man and the others. What are you doing? Damn it, you crazy woman! The white-haired young man roared. He opened his mouth and let out a long roar. His body expanded rapidly and he turned into a huge white lion. It was a divine beast, the ice snow lion. Not only him, the other young men also transformed into ice snow lions. The white-haired young man and the others were not humans but divine beasts, the ice snow lion clan. They transformed into their true forms and released their full strength. They opened their mouths and roared. Waves of cold air rushed towards the beautiful woman. The white-haired youth was truly furious. He was about to retreat when the absolute beauty suddenly launched an attack on him. He could only defend with all his strength. Boom! Boom! Explosions continued to erupt in this area, and energy overflowed in all directions. Good chance. Lu Ming's eyes lit up as he transformed into his ancient god body. Supernova. Lu Ming thrust out his spear. A spear light rushed towards the beautiful woman, and then exploded. It collided with the beautiful woman's sword light. With the help of this force, Lu Ming's body retreated rapidly. Then, he used the Garuda technique and rushed forward. This woman's brain is indeed not very good, this thought flashed through Lu Ming's mind the moment he rushed out. In fact, through the previous few times, Lu Ming discovered that although the absolute beauty was powerful and had amazing talent, she didn't have many schemes and didn't have many thoughts. To put it bluntly, it was pure. Yes, pure. Not only was she pure, but she was also arrogant. Therefore, she had been tricked time and time again. Just like just now, Lu Ming was only pretending to invite the white-haired youth and the rest to attack together. The absolute beauty didn't even think and attacked the white-haired youth and the rest. The main reason was that she was naive and thought that the white-haired youth and the rest would really attack. Another reason was that she was arrogant. She was confident in her own strength and thought that she could deal with the white-haired youth and the rest. This was the opportunity that Lu Ming seized. Pervert, prepare to die. Seeing Lu Ming running away again, the absolute beauty was enraged. She abandoned the white-haired youth and the rest and chased after Lu Ming. One chased while the other fled. In the blink of an eye, they disappeared, leaving the white-haired youth and the rest looking at each other. Who is this crazy woman? Why haven't I seen her before? The Starry Sky Barracks actually has such a beautiful and talented person. It seems like we have to pay more attention to her in the future. And that kid, Lu Ming, must have some secrets on him. Otherwise, the Jin and Qin family wouldn't want to kill him. I hope he is lucky and doesn't die in the hands of that woman. The next time he meets us, he won't be so lucky. The white-haired youth and the rest chatted for a while before leaving the place. Lu Ming circulated the Nine Heavens Kuan Peng technique to the extreme. His divine force boiled and condensed into a Kuan Peng. The Kuan Peng's wings flapped rapidly. With every flap, Lu Ming flew a few hundred miles away. However, the absolute beauty's speed was even faster. She turned into a sword light and pierced through the air. Her speed was even faster than Lu Ming's. This was also because of the chilling underworld qi. Otherwise, the absolute beauty's speed would be even more shocking. Lu Ming wouldn't be able to escape. Lu Ming, this time, don't think of using a desolate beast to get rid of me. I won't be fooled again. The absolute beauty shouted. Once she thought of how Lu Ming had escaped from her time and time again, she was extremely unhappy. Her killing intent became even more intense. Beauty, beauty, why must you chase after me? I have a wife. Lu Ming shouted. It's because you have a wife. You deserve to die even more. The absolute beauty said coldly. Lu Ming almost vomited blood. He staggered and almost fell. What did she mean by it's because you have a wife? You deserve to die even more. Why did these words sound like jealousy? However, Lu Ming had never seen this woman before. Beauty, don't tell me you secretly fell in love with me and found out that I have a wife. Since you can't get me, you want to kill me. You can't have such thoughts. It's too perverted. Lu Ming shouted. Nonsense, who likes you? Don't think too highly of yourself. The absolute beauty's expression turned even colder. Then why are you still chasing after me? Why must you kill me? Lu Ming was really speechless. I want to kill you because I want to kill you. Why are there so many reasons? Die. The beautiful lady shouted and a sword gleam slashed out. Lu Ming dodged the attack by a hair's breadth and was almost seriously injured. This woman really wanted to kill him. She wasn't just talking. She didn't show any mercy. Lu Ming was completely confused now. Even with his intelligence, he couldn't figure out the absolute beauty's motive. If they were sent by the Jin and Qin family, or a force that colluded with the Dark Ice tribe, the absolute beauty wouldn't have saved Lu Ming when the white-haired youth and others wanted to kill Lu Ming. What was the difference between killing him herself and being killed by others? However, the Absolute Beauty wanted to drive away the white-haired youth and others and kill Lu Ming herself. No matter how one looked at it, she looked like a resentful woman who had been let down. Beauty, have you mistaken me for someone else? In the end, Lu Ming shouted helplessly. I won't mistake you for someone else. You're Lu Ming from the Qin Tian Star area. The one I want to kill is you. The Absolute Beauty said coldly. Lu Ming was speechless. He could only fly with all his strength. Chapter 3008. Suddenly, Lu Ming's body trembled. His god force circulated, and the nine heavens Kunpeng became more solid. At this critical moment, the nine heavens Kunpeng art broke through to the 8th level. Initially, when Lu Ming cultivated the incomplete nine heavens Kunpeng technique, he had already reached the peak of the 7th level. Later on, he obtained the complete version of the nine heavens Kunpeng technique. After cultivating for a period of time, he was highly focused and naturally broke through. Once the nine heavens Kunpeng art broke through to the 8th level, Lu Ming's speed increased greatly. With a flap of the Kunpeng wings, Lu Ming's speed soared. In an instant, Lu Ming's speed was comparable to the Absolute Beauty's. He broke through. The Absolute Beauty's eyes narrowed. Her god force surged, and she turned into a streak of sword light that shot forward like lightning. However, she couldn't catch up to Lu Ming. The two maintained a certain distance. Whoosh! Lu Ming inwardly sighed in relief. As they flew, the two went deeper into the frigid underworld forbidden land. However, the Absolute Beauty was still chasing after Lu Ming. This crazy woman, what kind of deep grudge do I have with her? Lu Ming was enraged that he had been chased after. He couldn't go on like this. Although he had an endless supply of god force and could maintain it for a long time, if this continued, he wouldn't have enough time to search for the extreme cold treasure. Lu Ming, there's an extremely strong fluctuation of extreme cold energy ahead. The voice of the quantum formula suddenly sounded. Extreme cold energy fluctuation? Lu Ming's eyes lit up, and he continued flying. After flying for a while, the coldness in front of them became even stronger. The frigid underworld energy was like smoke. In the distance, Lu Ming saw a huge crack in the ground. It was 100 li long and dozens of li wide. The dense cold underworld qi was seeping out from the cracks in the ground. Got it. Lu Ming's eyes lit up. Lu Ming thought of a plan, a countermeasure that might allow him to get rid of the beautiful woman. The frigid underworld energy in the crack was so dense that it could be used to shake off the Absolute Beauty. Whoosh! Lu Ming rushed towards the underground fissure. The underground crack was so huge that even though Lu Ming had transformed into the body of an ancient god, it was still very small. He rushed in easily. Seeing Lu Ming rush into the underground fissure, the beautiful woman's expression changed slightly. Don't even think about escaping. In the end, the beautiful woman gritted her teeth and rushed in as well. The underground fissure was very large. The deeper one went, the wider it became. However, the cold air also became heavier. Very soon, Lu Ming arrived at the very bottom. The cold air here was already very astonishing. Lu Ming channeled the divine power of Yin with all his might. Together with the protection of the ice shackles, he was able to block the attack of the cold air. Clang! The sound of a sword chime could be heard as a beam of sword light rapidly approached from above. This woman really doesn't want to give up. Lu Ming's face darkened as he rushed forward. Underneath the fissure was a huge canyon. Lu Ming, yes, it's right in front. I can feel the extremely dense cold air. There must be a treasure of extreme cold here. It can even refine the energy of many stellar cores. The quantifying character formula kept tempting Lu Ming. Lu Ming ran at high speed. Very soon, he reached the end. At the end, there was a huge dark cave. Cold underworld qi constantly overflowed from it. Lu Ming rushed in without hesitation. Not long after Lu Ming rushed in, the beautiful woman also rushed in. Inside the cave, there was a passage. Lu Ming ran for 1,000 miles before his eyes suddenly opened up. This was a huge underground space. The surrounding walls were inlaid with snow-white gemstones that constantly emitted cold air. At a glance, there were at least a few hundred gemstones that emitted a hazy glow. Could these be the treasures of extreme cold? No, the quality of these gemstones is much worse. Lu Ming frowned. Although these gems emitted a cold aura, their quality wasn't high. They were probably inferior to the cold jade stones by a large margin. However, if they were sold to those who cultivated cold attribute divine power, they should be worth a lot of divine crystals. However, Lu Ming was a little disappointed. This was not what he wanted. No, I can feel that there is a very high quality treasure of extreme cold. It must be in this area. I can't be wrong. Let me sense it. The quantifying character formula shouted. Whoosh. At this moment, a sword light flashed and the beautiful woman chased in. This crazy woman is really here. Lu Ming's face was a little gloomy. However, the cold air here was very strong. The beautiful woman laid down layers of divine power around her body to block the cold air from the outside world. Lu Ming, die. When the beautiful woman saw Lu Ming, she wanted to kill Lu Ming. Rumble. At this moment, the underground space suddenly began to tremble, and the surrounding walls began to emit rumbling sounds. Bang! Suddenly, one of the walls burst open. Gravel and ice splashed and then a huge head stuck out. Lu Ming was startled. He did not expect a head to stick out of the wall. This head was not the head of an animal. It was like a tree stump. It was snow-white and crystal clear and full of roots. It was extremely huge, at least a few thousand meters in length and width. A cold attribute treasure. Yes, there is a cold attribute treasure in between its eyebrows. The quantifying character formula shouted. Lu Ming took a closer look and saw a silver-white gemstone embedded in the tree stump's head. A terrifying cold air flowed out of the silver-white gemstone. What an amazing cold air. This cold air is probably not inferior to the ice jade heart of the ice soul race. Lu Ming's eyes lit up and his heart was burning. If he could get this gemstone and give it to the quantifying character formula to neutralize the energy of the stellar core, he would definitely be able to quickly refine some energy for Lu Ming to break through. I must get it. Lu Ming thought to himself. Roar. After the head that looked like a tree stump appeared, it let out a beastly roar. It opened its mouth and spat out hundreds of ice thorns in the void. Then, it whistled and pierced toward Lu Ming and the beautiful lady. Void piercing, Lu Ming kept using the sky-piercing technique. Streaks of spear gleams burst forth, blocking the attacks of the ice thorns. Dang! Dang! A series of collision sounds were heard. Lu Ming blocked the ice thorns, but his body was shaken and he could not help but retreat again and again. What an amazing power! Lu Ming's eyes were a little dignified. On the other side, the absolute beauty waved her sword light and blocked the ice thorn's attack quite easily. Roar! Seeing that Lu Ming and the beautiful woman had not been dealt with in one move, the head that resembled a tree stump seemed to be enraged. It opened its mouth and spurted out a white mist, which surged toward Lu Ming and the beautiful woman. This mist was like an upgraded version of the cold underworld chi. It was full of terrifying cold air. Wherever the mist passed, pieces of ice crystals appeared in the space. It was very scary. Chapter 3009. His head was like a tree stump and the cold air that he exhaled was terrifying. Even Lu Ming shuddered as if his body was about to be frozen. The absolute beauty had to deploy more than 10 layers of divine power around her to block the chill. Bam! 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 At this moment, the ground cracked open. Several vines rushed out from under the feet of Lu Ming and the Absolute Beauty and attacked them. There were a total of 4 vines. 2 of them targeted Lu Ming while the other 2 targeted the Absolute Beauty. The vines were snow white and sparkling like jade. However, they were filled with a terrifying chill. Whoosh whoosh, the vines lashed out in the air, making whistling sounds. They were like soft whips lashing out at Lu Ming. Moon slashing. Lu Ming held the spear with both hands and struck out continuously. Boom! Boom! The long spear struck the vines and caused a violent tremor. Then, Lu Ming's body shook violently as he retreated. The blood in his body was in turmoil and he almost vomited blood. The surface of his body was covered with a layer of ice crystals that almost froze his body. He had to constantly activate his divine power to dissolve the layer of ice crystals. So that stump head is the head of a vine. However, its strength is terrifying. Lu Ming's face was solemn. At this moment, he could see that the huge head that appeared previously was the head of a vine. The strength of this vine was extremely shocking. It was definitely in the Divine King realm. Its strength was even stronger than the Dark Knight Demon King. Clang! Clang! On the other side, the Absolute Beauty's sword radiance kept bursting out and slashing at the 2 vines. The vines were sent flying. Roar! Roar! The vine roared and the 4 vines danced wildly. Each vine could change its size at will. Like a long snake, they either lashed out or entangled towards the 2. However, this time, only one of the 2 vines that were attacking Lu Ming was left. The other vine attacked the Absolute Beauty. Clearly, the Absolute Beauty posed a greater threat to it. The vine used more power to deal with the Absolute Beauty. Lu Ming, if you want to kill this vine and obtain the treasure of extreme cold, you must destroy its head. Otherwise, you won't be able to kill it by attacking the vine alone. Measuring character Zhu shouted. Understood. Lu Ming responded, brandishing his long spear, exchanging a few moves with the rattan vines. Suddenly, Lu Ming's figure moved, executing the 9 Heavens Garuda art to the extreme. Lu Ming's figure flashed as he dodged the vine's attack. Then, he dashed towards the vine's head. In the blink of an eye, Lu Ming was not far from the head of the vine. Hoo hoo, the vine opened its mouth and spat out a dense mist towards Lu Ming. The temperature of this mist was astonishingly low. Lu Ming was enveloped in it and felt that his body was about to freeze. Not only his body, but even his soul was about to be frozen. But suddenly, the 9th ice chain glowed and a layer of silver-white light enveloped Lu Ming, blocking the cold air outside. Then, Lu Ming's body shook and the ice crystals on the surface of his body shattered. Lu Ming continued to attack the vine's head. Seeing that Lu Ming was about to reach the vine's head, Lu Ming was about to use the exploding star move to kill the vine. But at this moment, the rocks around the vine's head exploded and 5 vines rushed out. Each of the 5 vines was crystal clear and exuded a terrible chill. They either lashed out or entangled towards Lu Ming. Not good. Lu Ming's pupils contracted sharply. It turned out that this vine had so many vines. It was like an octopus. Previously, he had only used 4 vines to attack Lu Ming and the others. The other 5 were hidden near the head to protect it. Once someone got close, the 5 vines would launch a thunderous attack. At this moment, Lu Ming could only try his best to resist. Roar! Roar! A dragon's roar was heard. Lu Ming activated the mystical dragon aspect technique and 7 mystical dragon aspects appeared and rushed towards one of the vines. At the same time, he waved his spear and blasted several vines. Boom! Boom! A series of explosions sounded and the 7 9-clawed dragon aspects were instantly defeated. Lu Ming's body shook violently and his arms were about to explode. He spat out large mouthfuls of blood. However, Lu Ming could only block 3 of the 5 vines. There were still 2 more that Lu Ming could not do anything about. The remaining 2 sets of rattan vines entangled Lu Ming in no time. A terrifying chill spread throughout Lu Ming's body. Lu Ming's body was immediately covered by a layer of ice. Break, break! Lu Ming roared. The divine power in his body erupted and he struggled wildly, trying to break the vines. However, the vines were extremely tough. Lu Ming used all his strength, but not only did they not break, they even tightened. The green scales on the surface of Lu Ming's body were about to shatter. Then, the vines pulled Lu Ming and stuffed him into the mouth of the vine. It intended to eat Lu Ming. This is bad. Lu Ming's eyes showed a trace of panic. The current situation was very bad. His entire body was entangled and he was almost frozen. He had no way to resist. Although he had cultivated the divine power of Yin, his cultivation was still weak. He could not block the invasion of the cold from the outside. Kid, don't be afraid. Entering its mouth is our chance. Maybe we can take the opportunity to kill it. At this moment, the quantifying formula said. Enter its mouth to kill it? How? The chill in its mouth is terrifying. If I go in, I'll probably freeze to death in an instant. Lu Ming said. Freeze to death? How is that possible? I'm here. How can I let you freeze to death? The quantifying formula said unhappily. Lu Ming's eyes lit up. Yes, chill was actually a kind of energy. The quantifying formula was known as the origin of all energy. It could devour any kind of energy, so it could also devour chill. As long as the quantifying formula worked on Lu Ming's surface and devoured the chill of Lu Ming's white face, Lu Ming would not have to be afraid of that chill. Kid, it seems that you've thought it through. The reason why I haven't made a move now is that I don't want to alert the vine. If that happens, it will be really difficult to kill you. The quantifying formula said. Well, let's go for it. Lu Ming's eyes showed a trace of ruthlessness. He planned to let the vine swallow him before launching a thunderous attack. But at this moment, there was a change. Whoosh! 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 Streaks of sword chi shot over and slashed on the vines wrapped around Lu Ming. Sparks flew in all directions. It was the absolute beauty who had arrived. She got rid of the 3 vines and rushed over. I'm the only one who can kill Lu Ming. No one else is qualified to kill him, including you, old vine. The absolute beauty shouted. Sword chi filled the air. Her body was shrouded in a transparent sword light. Her aura was extremely shocking. Divine sword technique. The absolute beauty waved her hand and hundreds of sword chi slashed at the vines wrapped around Lu Ming. However, the vines were really hard and sturdy. Even with the absolute beauty's strength, she could not cut it. She could only leave a few white marks on it. Chapter 30:10. The beautiful woman's action angered the rattan. The other rattan vines flew over together, whistling through the air and attacking the beautiful woman. Swoosh! 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 With a wave of her hand, rays of sword light that looked like colored glaze slashed at the rattan, sending it flying. The beautiful woman was very strong. If they were in the outside world, her strength might not be weaker than the rattan vines. But here, she was affected by the icy underworld chi and couldn't unleash her full strength. You crazy woman, what are you doing? Who needs your help? Lu Ming shouted. He was speechless. This crazy woman wanted to kill him before, but now, she wanted to save him. He couldn't figure out what she was thinking. A woman's heart was like a needle at the bottom of the sea. It was vividly reflected in this woman. I've said it before. Even if you die, you can only die in my hands. The beautiful woman shouted coldly. She waved her sword and streaks of sword light slashed at the rattan vines wrapped around Lu Ming. She wanted to split the rattan vines and save Lu Ming. But the rattan vines were hard and couldn't be split. Are you crazy? I don't want you to save me. Get lost. Lu Ming shouted. This woman's action would ruin his plan. He planned to rush into the mouth of the rattan vines and kill them. If he was saved, his plan would be ruined. Lu Ming really wanted to curse. However, the beautiful woman's face darkened. She couldn't be bothered with Lu Ming and continued to attack. However, she couldn't break the rattan vines. Lu Ming was being pulled closer by the rattan vines and was about to be pulled into the mouth. At this moment, a trace of ruthlessness flashed in the beautiful woman's eyes. She suddenly abandoned Lu Ming and rushed toward the rattan's head. She also knew that if she wanted to save Lu Ming, she could only attack the rattan's head or even kill it. Divine sword skill, kill. The beautiful lady shouted and rushed towards the head of the vine. She slashed out with her sword and a crystal-clear sword light slashed towards the vine. The vines waved a few vines in front of him to block the sword light, but the vines were also swept away. Kill. The beautiful woman kept getting closer to the vine's head. Roar. Tengman roared and struggled. Its head completely broke free from the wall. Rumble. The huge body of the vine was completely revealed. It had a huge head, and its body was supported by 9 thick vines. It looked like an octopus. The vine completely broke away from the wall, and its body became more agile. With a flash, it dodged the attack of the Absolute Beauty. At the same time, it waved the vine and attacked the Absolute Beauty. The beautiful woman was enveloped by a transparent sword light. 2 vines struck the sword light. The sword light vibrated, and the beautiful woman's body also shook. However, her face was filled with determination and stubbornness as she continued to charge towards the head of the vine. Man and sword as one, kill. In the end, the beautiful woman shouted. Her entire body turned into sword light and rushed towards the head of the vine, ignoring her own defense. Bang! 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 The vine waved a few vines and lashed towards the beautiful woman. When they hit the sword light around her body, the sword light vibrated violently. The beautiful woman's delicate body trembled and blood flowed out from the corner of her mouth. However, she ignored it and continued to charge towards the head of the vine. This crazy woman doesn't even care about her own safety. Lu Ming was speechless. At this moment, he felt a little warm in his heart. After all, this woman was trying to save him. Swoosh! The sword light that the beautiful woman turned into was extremely powerful. It emitted a shocking power and charged towards the head of the vine. It looked as if it was going to split the head of the vine into 2. The vine's eyes finally revealed a trace of panic. It let out a loud roar and the vines that were entangled around Lu Ming loosened. Ignoring Lu Ming, all of them lashed out at the beautiful woman. Bam! 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 The 9 vines kept lashing at the beautiful woman. The protective sword light of the beautiful woman finally couldn't withstand it and was shattered. At the same time, the gem on the vine's head that was emitting a chilling aura shone. A ray of light rushed towards the beautiful woman. This ray of light was astonishingly fast and it hit the beautiful woman in an instant. The beautiful woman's delicate body trembled and she was sent flying backwards. However, as she was sent flying, a sword light left her hand and slashed at the head of the vine. However, as the beautiful woman was sent flying, the sword light was slightly deflected and slashed at one of the vine's eyes, leaving a deep wound. Roar! Roar! The vine roared crazily and the 9 vines danced wildly. Lu Ming quickly dodged and one of the vines hit the beautiful woman who was sent flying. The beautiful woman was sent flying and hit the wall at the side before falling to the ground. What was more shocking was that a layer of ice crystals appeared on the beautiful woman's body quickly and it was about to freeze her. Go, quickly, quickly leave this place, the beautiful woman didn't die. She stared at Lu Ming and shouted. After saying that, she spat out a few mouthfuls of blood. This crazy woman, Lu Ming was really confused. This woman was bent on killing Lu Ming before. Now, she was willing to risk being seriously injured to save Lu Ming. After being injured, she even asked Lu Ming to leave quickly. This change was a little too fast. However, Lu Ming didn't want to leave now. The vine was injured and it was a good opportunity to kill it. Lu Ming's body flashed and he continued to kill the vine. Roar. The vine roared and waved its vines, lashing at Lu Ming. Lu Ming's body shrunk and he turned into an ordinary person. He then performed the Nine Heavens rock technique to the extreme and dodged continuously. With his body shrunk, he became more agile and dodged more easily. In addition to the 8th level of the Nine Heavens rock technique, Lu Ming dodged 9 vines in a row and rushed to the vine's head. When Lu Ming approached the vine's head, the gem on its head shone again. A white light beam rushed at Lu Ming. This was the light beam that attacked the beautiful woman before. It was astonishingly fast and had a terrifying chill. Lu Ming couldn't dodge it even if he wanted to. The beautiful woman didn't dodge it just now either. In the next moment, the white light beam attacked Lu Ming's body. At this moment, Lu Ming felt a bone-chilling chill that wanted to freeze him completely. Not only his body, but also his soul was about to be frozen. Cold. Extremely cold. Lu Ming felt that his mind was about to be frozen. This was an extremely terrifying thing. Fortunately, Lu Ming had the measuring character formula. In his sea of consciousness, the measuring character formula shone and a devouring force enveloped Lu Ming's body. Immediately, the bone-chilling chill was devoured by the measuring character formula. Lu Ming regained his freedom at once. Swish. Lu Ming sped up and rushed into the vine's mouth in a flash. Seeing Lu Ming rush into the vine's mouth, the beautiful woman's eyes revealed a hint of complexity. Chapter 30:11. I never thought that he and I would be buried together in this place. Is this really our destiny? The beautiful woman whispered. Her eyes were complicated. At this moment, the layer of ice on her body was thicker. Her eyes were unfocused and her vitality was getting weaker. The head of the vine was huge. When Lu Ming entered its mouth, he found that it was empty inside. Boom! Lu Ming released his powerful aura, wanting to kill the vine. However, endless cold air surrounded Lu Ming from all directions. It wanted to freeze Lu Ming to death. The cold air was terrifying. It came from the gem on the vine's head. If it were someone else, even the beautiful woman with her cultivation base, they would have been frozen to death. However, Lu Ming had the measure formula. The quantifier incantation glowed and a mysterious energy covered Lu Ming's body. The terrifying cold aura would be absorbed by the quantifier incantation once it got close to Lu Ming. It had no effect on Lu Ming at all. Lu Ming, wait a minute. Your attack is useless. If you don't attack its core, it will be difficult to kill it. The measure formula said. Core? Where is the core of the vine? Lu Ming asked. This vine isn't an ordinary plant. It was born from the cold air. It must have a core. I can feel it. Move forward. The measure formula said. The head of the vine was a few thousand meters in length and width. It was huge. Lu Ming flew for a few hundred meters and saw that there were many thin vines above. They were intertwined with a crystal core that was the size of a human head. That's the core of the vine. If you break it, the vine will die. The measure formula said. All right. Without hesitation, Lu Ming was about to attack. At this moment, the vine seemed to have sensed danger. It crazily gathered cold air to attack Lu Ming like a storm. Facing such cold air, even a first sky god realm cultivator would be frozen to death. However, it didn't affect Lu Ming at all. The cold air was absorbed by the measure formula. It could also be used to balance the energy of the star's core. Moon slashing. Lu Ming circulated his divine power and slashed with his spear. Boom! The spear light hit the crystal core. The crystal core shook violently and then exploded. Asterisk roar, sizzle, asterisk the vine let out ear-piercing cries. Its huge body struggled and eventually fell to the ground. It stopped moving and stopped breathing. Dead. Dead? The beautiful woman's eyes were filled with astonishment. However, her condition was getting worse and worse. She was about to fall unconscious. Boom! The head of the vine exploded and Lu Ming appeared on the head of the vine. He glanced around and frowned when he saw the state of the beautiful lady. Should I save her? Lu Ming muttered. Given Lu Ming's character, he did not want to save her. This was because this lady had been after his life. Since she was an enemy, Lu Ming would definitely not be soft-hearted. However, this woman had saved his life twice. The first time he faced the white-haired young man and the second time he faced the vine. No matter what the other party's purpose was, she did save him. Especially this time, in order to save him, she sacrificed herself. Save her. In the end, Lu Ming whispered. He was a man of principles. Since the other party had saved him, he had to return the favor. Lu Ming took a step forward and came to the side of the beautiful woman. This woman has been hit by the vine. The cold intent has attacked her heart. She will be frozen to death in at most 10 minutes. The measure formula said. Lu Ming nodded and looked at the beautiful woman carefully. To be honest, the beautiful woman was really beautiful. The clothes on her body were torn by the vine, revealing a large area of snow-white skin. Coupled with the fact that she was motionless and looked like she was at the mercy of others, she was full of fatal temptation. Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat. You. What do you want to do? The beautiful woman said nervously. Her voice was weak. What do you think? Lu Ming smiled evilly. This smile made the woman's face turn pale and full of despair. I will ask you some questions. If you can answer them, I will consider letting you go. Lu Ming said. What do you want to ask? Ask away. The beautiful woman said. Why do you want to kill me? Why did you save me? Lu Ming asked. This was the biggest curiosity in his heart. The beautiful woman gritted her teeth and seemed to be unwilling to say. You don't want to say it, right? If you don't want to say it, then don't blame me. Lu Ming smiled evilly and reached out to touch the beautiful woman's face. It was cold to the touch. A terrifying chill rushed to Lu Ming's palm. Lu Ming used his divine force to dissolve it. Stop, stop, I will say it, the beautiful woman said in a panic. Lu Ming looked at the other party and didn't say anything, waiting for her to continue. Because if I don't kill you, I will marry you. If I don't want to marry you, I can only kill you. The beautiful woman said. What? What? Lu Ming was dumbfounded and thought that he had heard wrongly. You want to marry me? Beauty, we have never met before. Why do you want to marry me? Lu Ming was dumbfounded. Are you the successor of Prince Jingyu? Suddenly, the beautiful woman said. Lu Ming was taken aback by these words and he almost jumped up. How did she know that Lu Ming was the successor of Jingyu? He didn't tell anyone about this. How did you know? Lu Ming's face darkened and his eyes flashed with killing intent. This matter couldn't be leaked out. Jingyu was framed in the past. He had terrifying enemies in the Taishu dynasty. If the secret of him being the successor of Jingyu was leaked out, he might be killed. My father told me. The beautiful woman said. Your father? Lu Ming felt a chill in his heart. Had he been exposed? My father is in the Starry Camp. When you were fighting in the Starry Camp, my father happened to pass by. My father recognized you. The beautiful woman said. Your father? Lu Ming whispered, but his mind was thinking quickly. Other than fighting with Lang Ying in the Starry Camp, he didn't fight with anyone else. Could it be that he was recognized by others? Who is your father? How did he recognize me? Also, what does this have to do with you marrying me? Lu Ming asked a few questions. My father is the teacher of Prince Jingyu. He has followed Prince Jingyu for countless years. My father can easily recognize his successor. The beautiful woman said. Jingyu's teacher? Lu Ming was slightly stunned. This was out of his expectation. My father is proficient in the art of divination. He once divined that the successor of Prince Jingyu is about to be born. Moreover, he swore that he would marry his daughter, which is me, to the successor of Prince Jingyu. My father believes that Prince Jingyu was wronged back then. He wants me to help Prince Jingyu's successor find out the truth of what happened back then. The beautiful woman continued. Chapter 30:12. My father wanted me to marry you, but I didn't want to marry you. So, I had to kill you. The beautiful lady's voice turned cold towards the end of her sentence. After listening to the beautiful lady's words, Lu Ming understood a lot. The beautiful lady's father was Jingyu's teacher and was proficient in the art of divination. He knew that Jingyu's successor was about to be born, so he wanted his daughter to marry Jingyu's successor. When the beautiful lady's father saw Lu Ming fighting with Lang Ying in the starry camp, he recognized Lu Ming's identity. No wonder the beautiful lady wanted to kill Lu Ming as soon as she saw him. Since you wanted to kill me, why did you save me? Lu Ming asked again. My father wanted me to marry you and protect you. So, if you want to die, you can only die in my hands. You can't die in the hands of others. The beautiful lady said. At this point, her voice became weaker and weaker. This logic is really weird. Lu Ming curled his lips and was speechless. However, according to this logic, it made sense. In this case, he had to save the beautiful lady even more. It wasn't because of her beauty, but because she was Jingyu's teacher's daughter. It seemed that those who followed Jingyu back then weren't completely suppressed. There were still some who were still alive. He would need their help to reverse Jingyu's case in the future. Lu Ming squatted down and held the beautiful lady's hand. You. What are you doing? You said that you would let me go if I answered your question. You can't go back on your words. The peerless beauty was a little flustered. She thought that Lu Ming was going to do something bad to her. Why are you panicking? I'm saving you. Lu Ming smiled faintly and transferred a surge of divine force into the beautiful lady's body. However, the moment the divine force entered her body, it was frozen by the terrifying cold air in her body. Her body is completely frozen by the cold air. It's almost frozen to her heart and brain. If these two places are frozen, she will die. The quantifying formula said. Can you suck the cold air out of her body? Lu Ming asked. Of course you can, but I can't expose myself. Your palm is pressed against hers, and I'll draw out the cold qi from her body. But this way, the speed will be slower. The quantifying formula said. If the measure formula were to appear directly, the devouring power would envelop the beautiful woman and easily absorb the cold energy from her body. However, if that was the case, the measure formula would be exposed. The origin ancient characters must not be exposed now. Otherwise, it would bring about a great disaster. It doesn't matter if it's a bit slower. Lu Ming said. Then, he placed his palm against the beautiful woman's palm. The beautiful woman's palm had already been frozen into a block of ice. It was incomparably cold to the touch, as if it was a piece of 10,000-year-old profound ice. When they were pressed together, the measure formula erupted with a suction force that flowed along Lu Ming's palm and rushed into the other party's body. The cold air in the beautiful woman's body was continuously absorbed by Lu Ming's palm and then entered the measure formula. The peerless beauty blinked her eyes twice in curiosity. She didn't expect Lu Ming to have such a method. Originally, she thought she was dead for sure. Whoosh! 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 At this moment, the sound of something breaking through the air could be heard. It came from the direction where Lu Ming and the rest came from. Someone's here, Lu Ming's face changed. He didn't expect that someone could find their way in here. In the next moment, 5 figures appeared in the underground space. It's them. Lu Ming recognized the 5 figures at a glance. They were the white-haired youth and the other 4 people that he had met before. The white-haired youth and the other 4 glanced around and their eyes fell on Lu Ming and the beautiful woman. When they saw the beautiful woman, they were shocked. However, after looking around, their eyes lit up. They weren't stupid. When they saw the vine's corpse in the situation of Lu Ming and the beautiful woman, how could they not figure it out? Ha ha ha, this is the 1,000 River Ice Vine. I didn't expect a 1,000 River Ice Vine to be born here. What great luck. A youth laughed excitedly when he saw the vine's corpse. His eyes were burning with passion. The greatest luck is that the 1,000 River Ice Vine has been killed. We don't have to take action. Ha ha ha. The other young man also laughed loudly. It's you guys? Get lost. The beautiful woman shouted coldly when she saw the white-haired youth and the rest. Yo yo yo, you're still so arrogant. Did we interrupt your date with your little lover? Hee hee, you're still so arrogant in your current state. You're really courting death. The white-haired youth shouted and stared at the beautiful woman with an unfriendly gaze. The beautiful woman was furious. Her almond-shaped eyes were wide open. If she wasn't frozen by the cold air, she would have immediately taught the white-haired youth and the rest a lesson. What about me? Do you still want to deal with us in your current state? You can't even protect yourself. The white-haired youth looked at the beautiful woman and revealed an unscrupulous smile. It's rare to see a beautiful woman like you. Don't worry. Before I kill you, I'll let you have a good time. Haha. At the end, the white-haired youth laughed lewdly. The beautiful woman's face turned pale. She naturally knew what the white-haired youth wanted to do. Quick, Lu Ming, kill me. I beg you, kill me, the beautiful woman sent a message to Lu Ming. She would rather die than be humiliated by the white-haired youth. How unlucky, Lu Ming muttered. He didn't expect the white-haired youth and the rest to come after he had just dealt with the vine. Lu Ming could escape from the white-haired youth and the rest. The key was that he hadn't obtained the gem on the vine. It would be a pity to leave like this. Moreover, he had to bring the beautiful woman with him. He might not be able to get away safely. Lu Ming's eyes turned and he began to think of a countermeasure. Third brother, let's take action quickly. Let's get rid of this lad before anything happens. One of the youths said. All right, leave this lad to me. You guys keep the corpse of the 1,000 River Ice Vine and leave this place quickly. Having said that, the white-haired youth walked towards Lu Ming while the other youths walked towards the vine. One of the youths came under the vine and wanted to use a storage ring to keep the vine's corpse. At this moment, there was a sudden change. The vine that was motionless suddenly moved again. Whoosh whoosh whoosh, a few vines danced like long snakes and attacked the youths. This situation greatly exceeded everyone's expectations. The vine was obviously lifeless. Why did it suddenly move again? Not only the white-haired youth, but even Lu Ming and the beautiful woman were stunned. Ah! Caught off guard, one of the youths was directly penetrated by a vine. Then, the vine swung and lifted the youth up, slamming him heavily on the ground. Boom! The ground shook and the youth was killed on the spot. Chapter 30:13. The white-haired young man and the others had a total of 5 people. The white-haired young man walked toward Lu Ming and the beautiful woman while the other 4 walked toward the 1,000 River Ice Vine. The 1,000 River Ice Vine suddenly attacked and killed one of the young men who was a 9th-layer heaven god. The other 8 vines danced wildly and attacked the other 3 young men. Bang! Bang! 2 of the young men reacted slightly faster and defended themselves with their attacks. However, they were still struck by the vines and were sent flying. They slammed into the wall and vomited blood. There was a woman who was not so lucky. She reacted slightly slower and was entangled by one of the vines. The temperature of the vines was shockingly low. As soon as the woman was entangled by the vines, her body was immediately covered with a layer of ice. The vines pulled the woman back toward its mouth. "Help, help." The woman struggled desperately and screamed. "Let her go." The white-haired young man roared and dashed toward the Thousand River Ice Vine. In the process, he turned into a frost lion and let out a roar. A terrifying gust of wind charged toward the Thousand River Ice Vine. Bang! Bang! The white-haired young man's attack landed on the Thousand River Ice Vine and caused a great impact. However, the vines were extremely tough and the white-haired young man's attack could not break them. The vines continued to pull the woman toward its mouth. "Help!" The woman screamed in despair. "Let's attack together." The white-haired young man roared and clawed at the vines with his sharp claws. Clang! 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 The sharp claws clashed with the vines, causing sparks to fly in all directions. However, they could only leave a few marks on the vines. Even the beautiful woman could not break the vines, let alone the white-haired young man. Meanwhile, the other two young men who were sent flying by the vines turned into frost lions and fought against the Thousand River Ice Vine. However, it was useless. Whoosh! The rattan wrapped around the woman and threw her into its mouth. The woman's screams came to an abrupt end, and there was no more sound coming from her. The mouth of the Thousand River Ice Vine was filled with a terrifying chill. The woman could not resist it after being thrown in. Roar! After swallowing the girl, the ice vine of 10,000 rivers roared as if it had gone mad. 9 vines shot towards the white-haired youth and the other 2. The sky was filled with the shadows of the vines, covering the white-haired youth and the other 2. At this moment, even if the white-haired young man and his 2 companions wanted to escape, it would be difficult for them to do so. They charged forward a few times, only to be blocked by the vines. "I'll fight you to the death," the white-haired young man bellowed as he clashed with the Thousand Rivers Ice Vine. "He's not as strong as before," Lu Ming muttered. He realized that the strength of the Thousand Rivers Ice Vine was much weaker than before. Otherwise, the white-haired young man and the others would have been in danger. But now, the white-haired youth and the other 2 were actually able to fight the Thousand River Ice Vine together. "I didn't expect this ice vine to have a secondary core," the quantifying formula said. "Secondary core?" Lu Ming was puzzled. "That's right. This Thousand Rivers Ice Vine, other than having a main crystal core, also has a secondary core. Just now, when you shattered the main core, the Thousand Rivers Ice Vine actually did not completely perish. During that period of time, it was awakening its secondary core. However, a secondary core is still a secondary core. It's far inferior to the primary core. It seems that this ice vine's spiritual intelligence has been greatly reduced. It has gone mad and only knows how to attack. Moreover, its strength has been greatly reduced," the quantifying formula explained. Lu Ming understood. He could not help but secretly rejoice. It turned out that the Thousand River Ice Vine had a secondary core. Fortunately, the white-haired youth and his companions came. Otherwise, if Lu Ming went to retrieve the gem on the Thousand River Ice Vine's head, the Thousand River Ice Vine would suddenly awaken and attack. The consequences would be unpredictable. This won't do. If this continues, the outcome will be determined soon. At that time, it will be disadvantageous for us. We have to quickly absorb the chill from her body. Old quantifying formula, can't you be faster? Lu Ming transmitted his voice to the quantifying formula. If I'm faster, it will be easy to be exposed. Moreover, your palms are separated by her palms. It's too far away from her heart and brain. The heart and brain are fragile parts. If I increase my strength, the chill will hurt her heart and brain if something goes wrong, the quantifying formula said. Then how can I speed up? Lu Ming asked again. It's simple. You put one hand on her forehead and the other on her chest. In this way, when the distance is closer, I can perform better. The quantifying formula said. Huh. Lu Ming was a little embarrassed. It was fine to put his hand on her forehead, but to put it on her chest, this was a little, hurry up. You're a man, don't be so wishy-washy. When the outcome is determined, don't say that I didn't remind you. The quantifying formula said. Then. Okay. Lu Ming gritted his teeth and stared at the beautiful woman, saying, Miss, you see the situation now. In order to save you faster, I'm sorry to offend you. With that, Lu Ming placed one of his palms on the forehead of the extremely beautiful woman while the other palm moved toward her chest. You. What are you going to do? No, don't. The woman cried out. But Lu Ming didn't bother to pay attention to her. He put his palm directly on the woman's chest. It was soft and full of elasticity, which made Lu Ming's heart skip a beat. The woman's voice stopped abruptly. She stared at Lu Ming with her big watery eyes. In her eyes, there were anger, shyness and other complicated emotions. Her snow-white face also turned red. Cough, cough, being stared at like this, Lu Ming couldn't help feeling a little embarrassed even though he was thick-skinned. He coughed a few times and said to the quantifying formula, Old quantifying formula, hurry up. Leave it to me. The quantifying formula glowed and a strong suction force flowed from Lu Ming's palm into the beautiful woman's heart and brain, absorbing the cold energy in her body. At this moment, the cold energy in her body was absorbed by the quantifying formula at an astonishing speed. The ice layer on her body quickly melted and disappeared. Her body gradually regained its temperature. At this moment, the battle between the three-headed snow lions and the Thousand River Ice Vine had reached its climax. Although the Thousand River Ice Vine only had a secondary core left, it had lost its intelligence and was completely crazy. Its combat strength was also very terrifying, suppressing the three-headed snow lions. Finally, one of the snow lions couldn't hold on any longer. Its head was pierced by an ice vine and it died on the spot. At this moment, only the white-haired young man and the other young man were left. Third brother, what should we do? Are we going to die here? The other young man said in fear. This young man was also a half-step divine king. His strength was slightly weaker than the white-haired young man, but he was still very strong. They had tried many times to rush out, but the 9 rattan vines had completely sealed off their escape route. Chapter 30:14. Today, we will only have a chance if we kill him. His vital point is his head. Let's work together and kill him. The white-haired youth was a decisive person. Since they could not escape, they could only fight with their lives on the line. The two of them communicated telepathically and came up with a plan. Roar! Roar! The two frost lions roared and unleashed their lion roar technique. The air was turbulent and a few rattans were blown away. Then, the two of them charged towards the rattan's head. However, there were 9 vines. Immediately, the other vines shot towards the 2 ice snow lions to kill them. I will block the rattans. You go and kill him. At this moment, one of the frost lions roared. Divine power was burning all over his body. He opened his mouth and roared. Lions flew out from his mouth and charged towards the rattans. This was a secret technique that was formed by the condensation of divine power. This frost lion was going all out. He burned his divine power and unleashed a terrifying secret technique. Boom! 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 The lions charged out and crashed into the rattans. They managed to push the 9 rattans away temporarily. How could the white-haired youth miss such an opportunity? His body glowed. He roared and charged towards the ice vine's head. He waved his sharp claws and clawed at the ice vine's head. Roar! The Thousand River Ice Vine let out a loud roar and opened his mouth. Icicles shot out from his mouth and collided with the white-haired young man's claw. At the same time, the frost gem on the ice vine's head shone and a white light beam shot towards the white-haired youth. This light beam was extremely terrifying and its speed was shocking. Previously, even the beautiful lady and Lu Ming could not avoid it. The white-haired youth could not avoid it and was hit by the white light beam. Once he was hit by the white light beam, the white-haired youth's body stiffened. A layer of ice crystals appeared on the surface of his body at an alarming speed. The ice snow lion had cultivated cold attribute divine power to begin with. Furthermore, he had mastered divine grade divine power. However, he was still unable to withstand the chill of the light beam. Bam! The white-haired youth's huge body fell to the ground and he could not move. He was not dead yet. At this moment, his eyes were filled with fear. Roar! The other snow lion let out a roar of shock and anger. However, with only one frost lion left, it was even less of a match for the ice vines. The 9 ice vines danced crazily and attacked the frost lion like a storm. Soon, the ice snow lion could no longer withstand the attacks. Its body was hit continuously and it was severely injured. If we're going to die, let's die together. The ice snow lion had a crazed look in his eyes as he charged towards the ice vine. His body emitted a blinding white light. He was going to self-destruct. In the next moment, there was a terrifying explosion as the snow lion exploded. The terrifying energy swept through the entire underground space. Not good. Lu Ming stretched out his hand and grabbed the beautiful woman's slender waist. His figure flashed and he retreated far away. He set up layers of defense in front of him to offset the impact of the outside world. When the light dissipated, the ice snow lion that had self-destructed had disappeared. The white-haired young man, who had been frozen and on the verge of death, had also perished. As for the Thousand Rivers ice vine, it was clearly injured as well. It was in the center of the explosion. There were several large holes in its head, and its aura was much weaker. Roar! The Thousand Rivers ice vine roared. Its furious eyes stared at Lu Ming and the beautiful woman. The 9 vines danced and rushed towards Lu Ming and the beautiful woman. Luckily, I made it in time. At this moment, Lu Ming let out a long breath. He let go of the beautiful woman and retreated quickly. Boom! Just as Lu Ming retreated, a powerful aura exploded from the beautiful woman. Lu Ming had finally absorbed the last bit of cold air from the beautiful woman's body. Once the cold air was absorbed, the beautiful woman's powerful cultivation was fully unleashed. Therefore, Lu Ming retreated quickly. Who knew if the beautiful woman would kill him after she recovered? The beautiful woman glanced at Lu Ming coldly. In the end, her figure flashed and she charged towards the Thousand Rivers ice vine. Go to hell! The beautiful woman shouted. Sword radiance shot out one after another towards the Thousand Rivers ice vine's head. The Thousand Rivers ice vine's strength was not as strong as before because of its secondary core. It had also been injured by the explosion of the ice snow lion and its strength had weakened significantly. As such, it was no match for the beautiful woman. The beautiful woman only needed to pay attention to the white light beam that she shot out. Swoosh! 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 Sword radiance shot towards the Thousand Rivers ice vine like a tidal wave. Some of the sword lights deflected the vines, while the rest of the sword lights slashed at the ice vine's head, leaving a sword wound on it. Roar! The Thousand Rivers ice vine roared crazily. It had no spiritual consciousness. Its head glowed and another light beam flew out from the gem. However, this time, the beautiful woman was prepared for it. She was far enough away and dodged the beam of light with a flash. Slash! The beautiful woman shouted. She held her sword with both hands and a terrifying sword radiance shot up to the sky. Then, the sword radiance slashed at the Thousand Rivers ice vine. The power of the sword radiance was too strong. It was an all-out attack from the beautiful woman. It deflected the 9 vines and slashed at the 1,000 Rivers Ice Vine's head. Poof! The 1,000 Rivers Ice Vine's head was split into 2. This time, the 1,000 Rivers Ice Vine was dead. Its huge corpse fell heavily on the ground. After killing the 1,000 Rivers Ice Vine, the beautiful woman turned around and looked at Lu Ming. Lu Ming's body tensed up and he was ready for a big fight. You saved my life this time and I'll let you off this time. The next time we meet, I won't let you off. Remember, the one who killed you is Lan Ling. After leaving these words coldly, the beautiful woman turned into a sword radiance and dashed into the tunnel. In the blink of an eye, she disappeared. Phew! After the beautiful woman left, Lu Ming heaved a sigh of relief. The beautiful woman had some conscience and did not continue to kill him. Otherwise, he would have to run for his life again. Lan Ling. Is that her name? Lu Ming muttered. Then, he shook his head and smiled bitterly. He had mixed feelings. A beautiful woman appeared out of nowhere and said that she wanted to marry him. No one would be calm. I have to increase my strength quickly. Otherwise, I'll be hunted down by this crazy woman again. Lu Ming muttered and walked towards the 1,000 Rivers Ice Vine. The 1,000 River Ice Vine's head was split in half by Lan Ling. Its secondary core was also shattered by the destructive sword energy. It couldn't be more dead than it already was. Luckily, the frost gem is fine. Lu Ming looked at the gem on the 1,000 Rivers Ice Vine's head. It was still intact. Luckily, the angle of Lan Ling's attack was slightly off. Otherwise, if the gem was shattered, Lu Ming would vomit blood. In a flash, Lu Ming came to the 1,000 Rivers Ice Vine's head. He took out a battle sword and removed the frost gem from the 1,000 Rivers Ice Vine's head. Chapter 30:15. The gemstone was extremely cold and emitted a terrifying chill. The quality of this gemstone is definitely not inferior to the ice jade chilling heart of the Ice Spirit clan. Lu Ming whispered. Kid, with this coldest gemstone, you can neutralize a part of the energy of the stellar core, and I can quickly refine a part of the energy. The quantifying formula said. Okay, then you can absorb it. Lu Ming said. Then, Lu Ming's glabella lit up, and the quantifying formula flew out and shone at the coldest gemstone. The coldest gemstone disappeared and was absorbed by the quantifying formula. After the quantifying formula absorbed the gemstone, it flew back to Lu Ming's sea of consciousness and calmed down and began to refine the energy. Lu Ming sized it up. First, his gaze fell on the 9 vines of the 1,000 River Ice Vine. The 1,000 River Ice Vine was born naturally. It could be said that its entire body was a treasure. Lu Ming was especially envious of the 9 vines. In the previous battle, Lu Ming had seen the power of the 9 vines. Not only were they extremely tough, but they were also filled with a terrifying chill. If he could refine the 9 vines into the ice shackles, wouldn't the power of the ice shackles increase greatly? The power of the ice chains was not bad, but it also had a weakness, and that was its fragility. It was effective against cultivators of the same level, or even 2 or 3 levels higher. However, Lu Ming's enemies were often 4 or 5 levels higher than him, and the ice chains were easily defeated. However, if the vines were refined into the ice chains, the weakness of the ice chains would disappear, and its power would definitely skyrocket. Let's do it. However, there was a problem that gave Lu Ming a headache. How to cut off the vines? Lu Ming circled around the body of the 1,000 River Ice Vine a few times, and his eyes lit up. Then, he took out a battle sword and cut at the place where the vines were connected to the head. The head of the 1,000 River Ice Vine was not that hard. Soon, Lu Ming removed a vine. So heavy. Lu Ming grabbed the rattan and waved it slightly. The rattan danced and pierced through the air, emitting a terrifying whistling sound. It was extremely heavy and there was a gust of cold air that drilled into Lu Ming's arm. Lu Ming was overjoyed instead of shocked. The more mysterious the vines were, the greater the benefits. Immediately, Lu Ming sat down cross-legged. With a thought, an ice chain flew out. Back then, he had refined a lump of cold liquid for this ice chain, and it was the most powerful. Lu Ming had to first refine the rattan into this ice chain. Activating the ice shackle's secret technique, the ice shackles wriggled and completely overlapped with the vines, and then began to refine them. Of course, this kind of rattan was incomparably tough. Refining it wasn't that easy. Lu Ming spent a full half a month to completely refine the rattan and merge it with the ice chains. With a thought, the ice shackles began to dance like a long snake. Hoo hoo hoo, the ice chains whipped the air, giving off a terrifying whistling sound. Bam! The ice chains whipped the ground, causing the ground to shake and gravel to splatter. A ravine a few meters deep was formed. What a powerful force! Lu Ming's eyes lit up. One should know that the ground here had been eroded by the frigid underworld qi for many years and was already incomparably tough. However, after being whipped by the ice chains, it caused great damage. On the other hand, the ice chains were completely fine. Then, Lu Ming took out a high-grade divine sword and slashed it with all his might on the ice chains. Clang! Sparks flew and the divine sword buzzed non-stop. However, there was no mark on the ice chains. Tough, it was too tough. It had completely inherited the characteristics of the Thousand River Ice Rattan. Kid, you have a good idea. The Thousand River Ice Rattan is naturally bred by heaven and earth. It has endless potential and is far from reaching its peak. Therefore, as long as you refine its rattan into your secret technique, as your cultivation increases, the power of your secret technique will continue to increase. Measuring Formula said. Lu Ming also showed a look of joy and said, Old Liang, how's the refining of the energy going? Refining the energy naturally can't be done overnight. However, I've already refined a part of it. I can transfer it to you now. Measuring Formula said. Let's wait for a while. Let me refine the remaining rattan first. Lu Ming said. Next, Lu Ming continued to work hard. He cut off the remaining 8 rattan vines and refined them into his ice chains. Lu Ming found that it was more difficult to integrate the remaining ice chains with the rattan vines. It also took a longer time. In this way, Lu Ming used a full year's time to refine the remaining 8 rattan vines and integrate them into the ice chains. With a thought, the 9 ice chains danced and whistled in the air. With another thought, the 9 ice chains disappeared without a trace. He could use it freely. In that case, my battle prowess has increased a little. Lu Ming said with a smile. Currently, the 9 ice chains were extremely sturdy. They could be used for both offense and defense. Ordinary people would not be able to break them. As a result, Lu Ming's ability to protect himself had increased significantly. Old Liang, now, transfer the refined energy to me. Lu Ming transmitted his voice to Measuring Formula. Now, it was time to raise his cultivation. Alright, be careful. Measuring Formula said. Following it, a strong and pure energy surged out. Lu Ming sat with his legs crossed and began to cultivate by absorbing the energy. The energy was extremely pure. Lu Ming could easily refine it and convert it into his own god force. In his dantian, the 5 godly flames formed by the 5 different kinds of god force grew stronger. The 5 godly flames were initially equivalent to the first layer heaven god realm, but they were rapidly approaching the second layer heaven god realm. A few days later, the flames of the 5 godly flames suddenly skyrocketed and successfully reached the second layer heaven god realm. The improvement continued. 10 days later, the 5 godly flames reached the third layer heaven god realm. The speed was extremely shocking. This meant that Lu Ming was constantly breaking through the stages and breaking through realms. If he were to cultivate normally, it would definitely take a lot of time. A few hundred years was considered short. A few thousand years or even 10,000 years were considered normal. That was the benefit of having Measuring Formula. The 5 godly flames were still improving, approaching the 4th layer Heaven God realm. However, when they reached the peak 3rd layer Heaven God realm, they ran out of energy. The energy that emerged from measuring formula was completely refined. Is there any more? Lu Ming asked measuring formula eagerly. You should be satisfied to have so much energy in a year's time. Measuring formula said. Lu Ming was speechless. However, on second thought, he should be satisfied. Without the frost gem, even with measuring formula, it would take a few hundred years to refine the energy of the stellar core. Now, Lu Ming should be satisfied to have achieved it in a year's time. Chapter 30:16. However, there's still a lot of energy left in the extreme frost gem. It can also neutralize the energy of many stellar cores. Wait for a while. The measuring character formula said. Lu Ming nodded and immediately started cultivating. This underground space was very remote. It was located in the frigid nether forbidden land and almost no one came here. Since Lan Ling left, no one else came here. Lu Ming was also happy to be free and focused on cultivating. When the measuring character formula didn't give him energy, Lu Ming would focus on comprehending divine skills and secret arts. When there was energy, Lu Ming would refine it. Every few months, the measuring character formula would give him a surge of energy. Just like that, another 2 years passed. Lu Ming had stayed here for more than 3 years. In these 3 years, Lu Ming's cultivation increased rapidly. In the beginning, the 5 divine flames condensed from divine grade divine force were all raised to the same level as the sovereign's divine force and imperishable sword force. Then, the 9 divine forces broke through at the same time. Just a few days ago, Lu Ming successfully broke through to the 5th level of the heavenly god realm. The 9 divine forces in his body all broke through to the 5th level of the heavenly god realm. This made Lu Ming's battle strength soar. With my current battle strength, it shouldn't be difficult to deal with that white-haired youth. Lu Ming muttered to himself, secretly estimating his own strength. That white-haired youth was a half-step god-king realm. His divine force awakened was around 60 to 70%. 3 years ago, Lu Ming definitely wouldn't be his opponent. But now, Lu Ming was confident that he could defeat this person. Lu Ming estimated that his current strength should be around the half-step god-king realm. His divine force awakened was around 80 to 90%. The comparison of strength here referred to the geniuses who had divine power. Those who didn't control divine grade divine force wouldn't have awakened their divine force. However, compared to someone as strong as Lan Ling, Lu Ming was probably not her match. My offensive divine skill is still at the 7th level. If I can break through to the 8th level, my strength will be stronger. Lu Ming pondered. However, this level of strength was already considered top-notch among this batch of geniuses who had entered Star Moon Ancient City. After all, there were only a few peerless geniuses who had awakened the divine power of origin. It's a pity that the energy of the coldest gem has been used up. Otherwise, I could have continued to break through. Lu Ming muttered, then shook his head. He knew that he had been too greedy. This time, not only did his other 5 divine grade divine powers improve, but his cultivation had also broken through a level. This was already a great harvest. One had to know that he had broken through 9 types of godly power at the same time. The amount of energy he needed was too terrifying. If he had only cultivated one type of energy, he would have definitely improved by more than 1 level. I've already wasted 3 years. It's time for me to go out for a walk. It's not easy for me to come to Star Moon Ancient City. I can't waste time like this. Lu Ming smiled and left. Not long after, Lu Ming landed on the ground and flew out of the frigid underworld forbidden land. Very few people came to the frigid underworld forbidden land. Lu Ming flew all the way and did not meet anyone. Not long after, Lu Ming left the frigid underworld forbidden land. After leaving the frigid underworld forbidden land, Lu Ming took out a map and looked at it. This map was naturally the one that Wu Zixiong had given him. Soon, Lu Ming locked onto the location. Myriad God Cliff. On the map, there was a large circle that was marked with large black letters. This was an important place in Star Moon Ancient City. Wu Zixiong and the others had mentioned before that Lu Ming could cultivate at the Myriad God Cliff when he was free. This was because this place could help one awaken the divine power of origin. It was said that many people had awakened their divine power of origin at the Myriad God Cliff. Some people had also awakened their divine power of origin after cultivating at the Myriad God Cliff and returning to the Starry Sky Camp. This was a must-visit place to enter Star Moon Ancient City. A few years ago, Lu Ming would have already gone there if it wasn't for the fact that he was looking for the absolute frost treasure to increase his strength. However, it wasn't too late to go there now. Lu Ming followed the map and headed towards the Myriad God Cliff. 2 days later, Lu Ming arrived at the Myriad God Cliff. The Myriad God Cliff was a cliff. However, this cliff was very majestic. It was hundreds of thousands of feet high and there were statues carved on the cliff. The statues were of different sizes and they were carved with different kinds of gods. Some were ferocious, some were majestic, some were terrifying. At a glance, there were no less than 10,000 statues. It was said that these statues were all carved with the primordial gods. In the sky outside the Myriad God Cliff, there were many stone platforms floating in the air. These stone platforms were very large. Each of them was 10 miles long and wide. From high to low, from far to near, they were like stairs floating in the air. On each of these stone platforms, there was a figure sitting cross-legged. There was only one figure on each stone platform. There were also many figures standing in the void outside the stone platforms, watching from afar. Lu Ming flew over. Many people glanced at Lu Ming and ignored Lu Ming. Although Lu Ming had passed the heavenly gate and many people knew him, they didn't take him seriously because his cultivation was very low. Lu Ming didn't care and looked forward. There was a person sitting cross-legged on each stone platform. There was a layer of light covering each person's body. Brother, why is there only one person on each stone platform? Can't others go up? Lu Ming asked an honest-looking young man beside him. You just arrived, right? The honest-looking young man glanced at him. Yes, yes. Lu Ming said with a smile. Legend has it that these stone platforms were used by the ancient gods during the early days of the heavenly palace to observe the cultivation of the Myriad Deity Cliff. The ancient gods were very large, so the stone platforms are so big. Moreover, each stone platform can only accommodate one person at a time. If there are too many people, they will be bounced off. The honest-looking young man explained. I see. Lu Ming suddenly understood. No wonder there was only one person on each stone platform. If the stone platforms are occupied by them, won't we have no chance? Lu Ming asked again. Of course there is a chance, but everything depends on one's strength. The honest-looking young man said. Strength? What do you mean? Lu Ming asked. These stone platforms were set up with powerful restrictions in the early days of the heavenly palace. They operate according to certain rules. When a person cultivates on a stone platform, the formation on the stone platform will protect him. The honest-looking young man explained. Lu Ming nodded. There was a layer of light covering each person on the stone platform. That was the protective power of the formation. With the protection of the formation, you can cultivate in peace. Others can't attack you, but this protection has a time limit. After 3 months, this protection will disappear. Of course, it will only disappear for a day. After a day, the protective power of the formation will reappear. Therefore, today is the day to fight for the stone platforms. The honest-looking young man said. Chapter 30:17. After hearing the young man's explanation, Lu Ming roughly understood the rules of cultivation here. Every single one of the stone platforms was protected by a formation for a period of 3 months. After 3 months, the protection of the formation would disappear. The time limit was 1 day. On that day, the others could compete for the stone platform. Whoever defeated the person on the stone platform could replace the other person and cultivate on the stone platform for 3 months. In other words, one would have to accept a challenge on the stone platform every 3 months. If one could defeat the challenger, they could continue cultivating. The higher the stone platform, the closer it is to the myriad deity cliff, the better the effect of cultivation. Therefore, one can also challenge the higher the stone platform. However, the higher the stone platform, the stronger the person is. Ordinary people are no match for them. The young man explained. Lu Ming nodded and looked at the stone platform at the top. There were a total of 3 stone platforms at the top closest to the myriad deity cliff. There were 3 figures sitting cross-legged on them. It's him. Lu Ming knew one of them. He was one of the 4 supreme talents who had passed the heaven gate. He was a half-step divine king because he had awakened his origin divine force factor. Although the other 2 had not awakened their origin divine force factor, their strength should be extremely shocking. Then, Lu Ming's gaze shifted downwards. He realized that there were a total of 108 stone platforms. Lu Ming knew some of the stone platforms. The Qin family and the Jin family. Lu Ming's eyes were filled with coldness. On a few stone platforms, there were people from the Qin family sitting cross-legged. These people were the ones who wanted to kill Lu Ming. In addition, there were also people from the Jin family. Jin Xing was one of them. They are all here, hee hee. Lu Ming sneered and said coldly. By the way, brother, how long can everyone cultivate on the stone platforms? Lu Ming asked again. Everyone can cultivate for 3 years. After 3 years, you can't go up unless you come in again. The young man explained. Lu Ming nodded. No wonder some of the peak-level geniuses weren't here. Logically speaking, these geniuses wouldn't miss out on a place like this. It seemed like some of the geniuses had already been cultivating for 3 years, while others might not be in a hurry. After all, they could stay in Star Moon Ancient City for 10 years. Everyone stood in the void and waited quietly. Many of them were prepared to fight at any time. There were too many wolves and too little meat. There were only 108 stone platforms, but there were over 1,000 people here. Even if each person could only cultivate for 3 years, there were still many people who couldn't go up to cultivate. If they wanted to go up to cultivate, they could only compete with their own strength. Soon, a day passed. Someone's 3 months are almost up. Suddenly, someone spoke, his eyes shining. Many people's gazes fell on a young man with a scale between his eyebrows in the bottom row. A member of the Qin clan? What a coincidence. I want this seat. Lu Ming muttered. At this moment, the light barrier around the Qin family's heavens chosen suddenly began to shine brightly. When the light reached its limit, it quickly dimmed and the Qin family's heavens chosen opened his eyes. At the same time, at least 100 figures rushed out and rushed towards the stone platform. I want this stone platform. Who do you think you are? Get lost. This opportunity to challenge is mine. Mine. Angry roars could be heard. Then, a bright divine light filled the air. Over 100 people were fighting fiercely in the air. Everyone wanted to step onto the stone platform to obtain the right to challenge. Whoever stepped onto the stone platform first would have the right to challenge. Boom. 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 In the void, there were continuous roars and terrifying explosions. All kinds of divine light and attacks were constantly colliding. However, the young men who were cultivating on the stone platforms didn't seem to feel anything at all. Obviously, the light barrier formed by the formation was protecting them. It even isolated them from the outside world. This way, they could cultivate in peace and not be disturbed by the outside world. A total of over 100 heavens chosen fought fiercely. For a moment, no one could step onto the stone platform. That was because if anyone approached the stone platform, they would be attacked by the others. Ah! A scream was heard. One of the Heaven's Chosen wanted to rush onto the stone platform but was attacked by the others. Dozens of divine light drowned the Heaven's Chosen. After a scream, the Heaven's Chosen vanished into thin air and nothing was left. The killing continued. There were people who were injured and people who were forced to withdraw. Some of the remaining people didn't make a move. Some of them knew that they weren't strong enough and wouldn't be able to compete. I want this stone platform. At that moment, Lu Ming's lips curled into a smile. Suddenly, his body moved like a bolt of lightning and rushed towards the stone platform. His speed was shocking as he rapidly approached the stone platform. However, the others also noticed Lu Ming. You're courting death. Get lost. Many people attacked. In an instant, dozens of divine light shot towards Lu Ming. Rock of the Ninth Heaven. Lu Ming bellowed and cast the Nine Heavens Kuan Peng technique. His divine power condensed into a Kuan Peng. He flapped his wings and his body suddenly accelerated, avoiding the attacks. The next moment, he landed on the stone platform. He's so fast. Many people were shocked. In that instant, they didn't have time to attack. Then, many people sighed. It seemed that they wouldn't have a share of the stone platform. Once someone stepped onto the stone platform, it would be useless for others to compete. Seeing Lu Ming step onto the stone platform, the battle in the sky stopped and everyone looked at Lu Ming. Stepping onto the stone platform was only the first step. If one wanted to obtain the right to cultivate on the stone platform, they would have to defeat the person who had cultivated before them. Unless the other party voluntarily withdrew after 3 years. Lu Ming, it's you. The Heaven's Chosen of the Qin clan looked at Lu Ming with a cold gaze. Of course it's me. It's time to settle the score with you all for surrounding me that day. Lu Ming said coldly. Settle the score? Huh, you think you can do that? The Heaven's Chosen of the Qin clan sneered and emitted a powerful aura. Ninth layer Heaven God Realm. This Heaven's Chosen of the Qin clan had a cultivation of the ninth layer Heaven God Realm. This time, he had cultivated on the stone platform for half a year, and his god force had awakened by a lot, reaching 50%. Lu Ming wanted to settle the score with him. Courting death. Bang! Lu Ming couldn't be bothered to talk nonsense with him. He took a step forward and a powerful aura rose. The god force in his body burst out. The god force on the surface of his body danced like flames. Then, the battle character art was activated. However, Lu Ming didn't use the ancient god body. With Lu Ming's current cultivation, he didn't need to use the ancient god body to deal with a ninth layer Heaven God Realm genius whose god force had awakened by 50%. A terrifying aura surged toward the Heaven's Chosen of the Qin clan. The Heaven's Chosen of the Qin clan widened his eyes and exclaimed, "Your aura, how is this possible?" The young man of the Qin clan was frightened. How could a fifth layer Heaven God Realm cultivator have such a terrifying aura? Chapter 30:18. The divine power in Lu Ming's body surged, forming a shockwave that dashed in all directions. The aura was so powerful that it shocked not only the Qin family's elites but also the surrounding people. They could not help but widen their eyes. His aura was even stronger than the Qin family's level 9 heavenly god. Ice chain. Lu Ming said in a low voice. Then, 9 ice chains shot out from his body. 7 wound divine fist. At this moment, the Qin family's prodigy finally reacted. He roared as his body glowed and threw out a punch. A giant fist print as big as a mountain pressed down on Lu Ming. Bam! 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 3 of the ice chains struck the opponent's fist imprints. The fist imprints trembled and exploded, but the ice chains were completely fine. After refining the 9 vines of the Thousand River Ice Vine, the ice chains were extremely tough. It was impossible for the prodigy to break them. The other 6 ice chains flew forward and continued to attack the Qin family's prodigy. The Qin family's prodigy was shocked. He unleashed all his strength and even injured himself to increase the power of the 7-wound divine fist. Boom! Boom! He threw out a few more punches in an attempt to break the ice chains. However, after the ice chains collided with the fist print, they only bounced slightly and changed their direction. Then, they continued to attack the Qin family's prodigy. Poof poof, a few ice chains pierced through the Qin family's prodigy's defense and wrapped around him. A terrifying chill spread out and a layer of ice appeared on the Qin family's prodigy's body. He couldn't move at all. Spare me, the Qin family's prodigy was scared to death and screamed. Outside the stone platform, the others were also dumbfounded. It ended just like that? The Qin family's prodigy was defeated in just a few moves. Wasn't it a little too fast? What a powerful secret skill. Lu Ming's secret skill is so powerful. I didn't expect him to be so powerful. He's only a level 5 heavenly god. No wonder he could pass the gate of heaven. Many people exclaimed. You wanted to kill me before and now you're begging for mercy. Is that possible? Lu Ming's indifferent voice rang out. With a thought, a chain of ice shot out like a sharp spear, piercing towards the other party's forehead. Puff! The other party's glabella was pierced through. He struggled for a moment before falling. Then, with a swing of the ice shackles, the corpse was flung out of the stone platform. After dealing with the genius of the Qin clan, Lu Ming sat down cross-legged and waited for the day to pass. There was only one chance to challenge. Since Lu Ming had succeeded in his challenge, the others could not continue to challenge. If they wanted to challenge again, they could only wait for 3 months. Soon, the day arrived. A light screen appeared on the stone platform, enveloping Lu Ming. At this time, Lu Ming's vision turned black, and he sank into complete darkness. Boom! Boom! Suddenly, Lu Ming felt a terrifying explosion coming from outside. Heaven and earth shook violently. Lu Ming quickly opened his eyes and was shocked by the scene in front of him. In the starry sky of the universe, a group of giants were fighting. The so-called giants were because their bodies were too huge. Each of the giants stood in the starry sky of the universe. They were shockingly burly. Their fists were bigger than a planet. They were ancient gods or primitive divine spirits. Lu Ming's heart was beating violently. The giants in front of him were all primitive divine spirits. A group of primitive divine spirits were fighting fiercely. The starry sky of the universe was boiling. Stars were falling like meteors, and some stars were exploding like fireworks. Heaven and earth were destroyed. This was the real destruction of heaven and earth. In such a battle, a galaxy would be destroyed in a short time. Not good. Suddenly, Lu Ming's face changed drastically. This was because he saw a beam of divine power rushing towards him. This divine power was filled with an ancient and desolate aura. After awakening his divine power origin factor, it was somewhat similar to this aura. However, it was still worlds apart. It was a difference in essence. This was because this was the divine power origin that primitive divine spirits controlled. Lu Ming's heart was in his throat. His body was tense. He wanted to escape, but he realized that he could not. Am I going to die here? A thought flashed through Lu Ming's mind. The divine power gave him a terrifying feeling. If he was hit, there would be nothing left of him. Not to mention him, even a peak divine king or someone above the divine king realm would be killed instantly in the face of such a divine power. The speed of the divine power was too fast. Lu Ming only had a few thoughts before the divine power bombarded his body. However, Lu Ming did not feel anything at all. Huh? Lu Ming looked at himself and touched himself. He found that he was fine. It was as if he was transparent. The divine power rushed through his body and bombarded a huge planet in the distance. The planet exploded with a bang. I'm fine. Are these all illusions? Lu Ming swallowed his saliva and heaved a sigh of relief. Next, he observed carefully. Sure enough, all of these were illusions and not real. Perhaps, they were projections from countless years ago. Then, Lu Ming thought of the god statues on the myriad deity cliff. Perhaps, these were projections from those god statues. However, I can feel the fluctuation of the divine power. Different primordial divine spirits controlled different divine powers. Lu Ming's eyes lit up as he observed carefully. These primitive divine spirits controlled different origin divine powers. Many of the divine grade divine powers could be traced back to these origin divine powers. If he could find a divine grade divine power of the same origin as the one he controlled, he would definitely benefit greatly from it. No wonder it was said that this place was very useful for comprehending divine power. It could even awaken the origin divine power. I control 7 types of divine grade divine powers. Which one should I cultivate first? I'd better cultivate the Sovereign's God Force first. In the end, Lu Ming decided to cultivate the Sovereign's God Force first. The Sovereign's God Force was the first divine grade divine power he had controlled, and his comprehension of it was also the deepest. It would be easier to cultivate. But first, he had to find a primitive divine spirit that controlled the same origin divine power as the Sovereign's God Force. Let's go. Lu Ming tried to move. With a thought, his body flew out at an unimaginable speed. Around him, numerous primitive divine spirits were fighting fiercely, but Lu Ming was completely unaffected. His body passed right through them. That's the origin divine power of the sun. Lu Ming saw a primordial divine power emitting a glow that was brighter than a star. It went berserk, grabbing a star as a weapon and throwing it at its enemy. It was extremely ferocious. The divine power that this primordial divine spirit controlled was the origin divine power that was similar to the divine power of the sun. Lu Ming also happened to be in control of the sun divine power. I'd better find the origin divine power of the Sovereign's God Force first. Lu Ming suppressed his desire and continued searching. Chapter 30:19. Lu Ming continued his search. Not long after, he finally found something. It was a primordial god, shrouded in a purplish gold radiance that obscured its appearance. However, the strange thing was that this primordial god wasn't very big. It was only about 100 meters tall. Compared to the other primordial gods that were larger than a planet, it was like a speck of dust. However, the aura it exuded wasn't weak at all. In fact, it was even stronger. When it punched out, the force of its punch could pierce through several planets and force a primordial god to retreat. How terrifying! This is the origin power of a Sovereign's God Force. Lu Ming's eyes lit up. He stood not far away and observed carefully, trying to comprehend it. Being able to observe the origin power of a primordial god at such a close distance had greatly affected him. What an exquisite divine power, what a terrifying divine power. I originally thought that divine grade divine power was the strongest divine power, but compared to this origin divine power, it's trash. No, it's even worse than trash. Lu Ming exclaimed. It was like a shriveled sponge that was crazily absorbing nutrients. Lu Ming lost track of time as he immersed himself in comprehending the Sovereign's God Force. Originally, his comprehension of the Sovereign's God Force wasn't deep. His awakening level wasn't even 10%, maybe 2%. He was still a long way from truly awakening it. But now, his awakening level was rapidly increasing. Awakening level was 2%, 3%, 4%, after an unknown amount of time, his awakening level reached 20%. This speed of improvement was shocking. Lu Ming felt that his use of the Sovereign's God Force had improved. Of course, the lower the awakening level, the easier it was to awaken it. The higher the awakening level, the harder and slower it would be to improve it. At this time, Lu Ming felt a force acting on him. His vision darkened again. In the next moment, there was a flash of light. He opened his eyes and found that he was still sitting cross-legged on the stone platform. Lu Ming knew that the 3-month period was up. The layer of light shield disappeared from Lu Ming's body. Lu Ming stood up and looked around, waiting for the others to challenge him. However, for a moment, no one dared to rush forward. 3 months ago, the strength that Lu Ming displayed was truly shocking. A 9th-level heavenly god genius was killed by Lu Ming in just a few moves. Without confidence, how could they dare to challenge Lu Ming? Lu Ming is too strong. I'm no match for him. Let's wait for someone else's stone platform. That's right. There are a total of 108 stone platforms. On average, someone's time is up in less than a day. Let's wait a little longer. Some people were discussing. Lu Ming waited for a long time, but no one challenged him. It seems like no one is going to challenge me. Lu Ming's lips curled into a smile. However, he did not sit cross-legged. His gaze landed on the stone platform above. The higher it was, the closer it was to the myriad god cliff stone platform, the better the effect. Lu Ming was no longer satisfied with his current stone platform. He wanted to find a better one. After all, each person could only cultivate for 3 years. He couldn't afford to waste his time. Could it be that Lu Ming wants a higher stone platform too? The crowd guessed after seeing Lu Ming's condition. At the same time, many people's eyes flickered. If Lu Ming left his current stone platform, it would be ownerless, thus they could compete for it. At this moment, on the row of stone platforms above Lu Ming, someone's body was suffused with radiance. The time was almost up. What a coincidence. Lu Ming's lips curled into a cold smile. The person was none other than Jin Xing. Lu Ming was initially considering if he should purposely wait for Jin Xing's time to come and chase him off the stone platform. To his surprise, Jin Xing's time was up. What could it be if it wasn't a coincidence? Jin Xing opened his eyes and scanned his surroundings. Whoosh! At this moment, Lu Ming moved at an alarming speed. In a flash, he appeared on Jin Xing's stone platform. Lu Ming. Jin Xing's expression changed drastically when he saw Lu Ming. Kill. Lu Ming took a step forward and attacked. The ice shackles flew out and wrapped around Jin Xing. However, just as Lu Ming attacked, Jin Xing also moved. He turned into a ray of golden light and rushed out of the stone platform. Jin Xing was indeed one of the 4 heroes of the Jin family. He was very decisive. The moment he saw Lu Ming, he knew that he was no match for Lu Ming. Without any hesitation, he rushed out of the stone platform. In this way, when Lu Ming's attack reached him, he had already left. In an instant, he had rushed out of the stone platform. This guy runs pretty fast. Lu Ming muttered. Lu Ming, I won't let you off so easily. Jin Xing stood in the crowd, his eyes cold. Charge. That stone platform is mine. At this moment, many people reacted and rushed toward the stone platform that Lu Ming was on. The curtains of a chaotic battle were raised once again. After a chaotic battle, the stone platform was finally occupied by a 9th-level heavenly god. As for Lu Ming, since he had defeated Jin Xing, no one could challenge him. Let's see the effects of this stone platform first. Lu Ming sat down cross-legged and waited quietly. A day later, a light screen enveloped Lu Ming. Lu Ming's vision turned dark again. In the next moment, he arrived in another part of the universe and saw a group of primitive godly spirits fighting fiercely. This time, Lu Ming quickly found the origin of the sovereign's god force and began to comprehend it. The effects of the higher stone platforms were indeed different. It was clearer to comprehend. Lu Ming's awakening of the sovereign's god force was increasing at an even faster speed. The further one went, the harder it was to improve. However, the effects here were also better. Lu Ming's improvement speed was even faster. 3 months later, his awakening had reached about 45%. Are other people's improvement speed that fast? Lu Ming could not help but think so. Based on his improvement speed, it would not be long before he reached 80 or 90%. Were other people's improvement speed that fast? Based on his previous observations, it did not seem to be the case. I'm indeed a cultivation genius. Lu Ming smiled very narcissistically. Then, he stood up and waited for the others to challenge him. Many people hesitated. For a time, no one challenged Lu Ming. I'll fight him. Finally, someone could not help but rush onto the stone platform and stand opposite Lu Ming. Lu Ming, let's fight. It's just a spar, not a fight to the death. What do you think? The young man said. He was not confident about facing Lu Ming, which was why he said that. Sure. Lu Ming smiled slightly. He had no enmity with this person, so there was no need to fight to the death. Boom. The young man's aura completely erupted. His god force burned fiercely. The young man's cultivation was infinitely close to the half-step godly king realm. Chapter 30-20. The youth that challenged Lu Ming was close to the half-step divine king realm. His aura was surging. Lu Ming, take my strongest move. The youth roared as a battle axe appeared in his hand. The battle axe expanded rapidly and became 10,000 meters wide. Slash. The youth roared as he merged with his battle axe and slashed at Lu Ming with all his might. In an instant, Lu Ming activated the battle symbol art and quadrupled his combat strength. 9 ice chains flew out and enveloped Lu Ming tightly. Boom! The battle axe chopped down on the ice chain defense, and a violent roar broke out. Strong chi overflowed, and shock waves spread out in all directions. The ice chains shook a few times and remained unharmed. Lu Ming did not move an inch. On the contrary, the youth was pushed back by the rebounding force. He landed on the stone platform and took a few steps back. Powerful. I am not your opponent. Goodbye. The youth cupped his fists and left the stone platform. He had already used his strongest move. Knowing that he was not Lu Ming's opponent, he admitted defeat and left. Lu Ming did not take it to heart. After giving a faint smile, he shifted his gaze to the stone platform above. He had already sensed the stone platform here. Although the cultivation speed was not bad, there were better ones. Why not choose a better one? Lu Ming's gaze swept across the first and second rows. This was his target. On the first row, there was a peerless genius who had awakened his divine origin power. Lu Ming was not his opponent yet. Naturally, he would not challenge him. As for the other two people, Lu Ming reckoned that they were also very close to awakening the origin divine power factor. The degree of divine power awakening was estimated to be more than 90%. Lu Ming was not confident of defeating them. Lu Ming looked at the second row again. Lu Ming planned to challenge the second row first. He would challenge the geniuses on the first row after his divine power had awakened to a higher degree. Lu Ming waited quietly. In the second row, Lu Ming found people from the Qin and Jin families. Each of the two clans had a prodigy in the second row. Just the two of you. Lu Ming planned to challenge the two geniuses of the Qin clan and Jin clan when their time was up. Whoever arrived first would be challenged. Not long after, it was time for someone in the third row. Lu Ming's eyes flashed, but he didn't make a move. Lu Ming is actually not making a move. Could it be that he's waiting for the second row or the first row? Someone guessed in surprise. Wait for the second and first rows? It couldn't be. Was Lu Ming that strong? You should know that the first 3 rows are all half-step divine king realm geniuses, and their awakened divine force is not weak. Look at the genius in the third row. He's not challenging anyone, and he's just standing there without cultivating. He must be thinking of challenging the people above. Many people were discussing this matter. However, no one dared to challenge the genius in the third row. That genius was very strong, and there were no half-step divine kings among them. Generally speaking, a half-step divine king genius would be able to get a spot without any pressure. Only those below the half-step divine king realm would fight for it. After waiting for a day, no one dared to challenge him. That youth continued to cultivate. On the other hand, Lu Ming stood on the stone platform and continued to wait. His body was covered by a layer of light. There was a lot of freedom to cultivate here. Even if a day was up, he could choose not to cultivate. Just like Lu Ming, if a day had passed, as long as he didn't enter into a state of cultivation, he wouldn't enter the starry sky to cultivate. It would only be a waste of time if he continued to wait. Just like that, Lu Ming waited for another 2 days. On this day, there was finally some movement on the second row. A young man in a golden robe was emitting light from his body. "It's finally time?" Lu Ming murmured, a cold light flashed in his eyes. This young man in a golden robe was indeed a genius of the Jin clan. The young man from the Jin clan opened his eyes. However, he was still sitting there quietly, without any intention of getting up. This was because he didn't think anyone would dare to challenge him. However, in the next moment, his eyes narrowed. This was because there was an additional person on his stone platform. Lu Ming. Lu Ming immediately rushed to his stone platform. "It's you, Lu Ming. You want to challenge me?" The genius from the Jin clan was slightly stunned when he saw Lu Ming. He was clearly surprised. "Can't I?" Lu Ming smiled faintly. "Of course you can. Since you want to die, I'll fulfill your wish." The young man from the Jin clan smiled sinisterly. "Jin Ju, don't underestimate him. He killed Qin Mu in a few moves." At this moment, Jin Xing transmitted his voice. Jin Xing hadn't left and was watching from afar. He reminded him. "Killed Qin Mu?" Jin Ju was slightly stunned. Then, he said, "It seems that your strength is beyond my expectations." Although he said that, Jin Ju was still very confident. Qin Mu was only a 9th-level heaven god. On the other hand, Jin Ju was a half-step divine king. Moreover, his god force had awakened to around 60%. His strength was far beyond Qin Mu's. While the two of them were talking, the others had already started fighting for Lu Ming's stone platform. Lu Ming and Jin Ju didn't make a move. They were waiting for the others to decide the winner before making a move. Not long later, when Lu Ming arrived at the stone platform, the famous flower was taken by a young man. "Now, it's your turn." Jin Ju looked at Lu Ming with a cold smile. His body was emitting a golden light. The golden radiance was incomparably dense. It was like a golden armor that enveloped him. Bang! Jin Ju stepped forward. His palm turned pure golden. A golden battle sword appeared in his hand. He slashed at Lu Ming. Roar! Lu Ming let out a roar. His body swelled and he transformed into an ancient god. Facing a half-step divine king prodigy, Lu Ming had to use his ancient god body. Otherwise, he wouldn't be a match for his opponent in his normal form. However, Lu Ming also had some reservations. After unleashing the ancient god body, his battle word tactic only triggered a doubling of his combat ability. It was fine as long as it was enough. Break the void, Lu Ming stabbed his spear. A spear light clashed with his opponent's golden sword light, creating a terrifying shockwave. Dong! After Lu Ming made his move, he stepped forward and attacked continuously. He waved his spear and launched a storm-like attack. Sort of breaking the void. Jin Ju roared. Golden divine light surged and slashed out golden sword marks. These sword marks were terrifying. They were extremely sharp and seemed to be able to cut through everything. Clang! Clang! In the blink of an eye, the two sides had exchanged dozens of blows. Jin family's secret technique of breaking the void is indeed powerful. Even Lu Ming couldn't help but exclaim at the power of Jin family's secret technique. Jin family was one of the top families in 9 Extinction Heavenly King Mansion. It wasn't just for show, it was because of their strength. Ice shackles. In the midst of the battle, Lu Ming willed and 9 ice shackles flew out. Chapter 30-21. 9 ice chains wrapped around Jinju, exuding a terrifying chill. Break! Jinju roared. The void-severing sword slashed at the ice chains, trying to break them. However, after a series of metallic clangs and sparks, the ice chains were undamaged. They were only sent flying by the powerful force. However, after the ice chains flew out, they turned and continued to attack Jinju. How is it possible that it's so tough? Jinju's expression changed. The ice chains were merely condensed by Lu Ming using a secret skill. They were not divine weapons. He had executed the void-severing sword, but he could not sever them. This was beyond his expectations. Buzz! At this moment, Lu Ming had also charged forward. His long spear slashed down, and a crescent-shaped spear radiance slashed at Jinju. Jinju hurriedly blocked. Although he managed to block Lu Ming's attack, the ice chains attacked him again. Clang! 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 He brandished his sword and continuously slashed at the ice chains, knocking them away. However, the terrifying chill of the ice chains followed Jinju's battle sword and crawled toward his body. The 9th ice chain was even more terrifying. Under the stimulation of the divine power of Moon, its power became more and more terrifying. The golden radiance on Jinju's body was covered in a layer of frost. His movements also became somewhat stiff, and his strength was greatly affected. Kill! Lu Ming roared. He took the opportunity to launch a flurry of attacks to suppress Jinju. In fact, Lu Ming could easily crush Jinju if he used his full strength. However, Lu Ming felt that there would be more battles later. It was better to preserve some trump cards. Bam! After a few more moves, Jinju was swept by Lu Ming's spear radiance. The protective divine power covering his body shattered, and he was sent flying, spitting out large mouthfuls of blood. Damn it, kid, I'll settle this score another day. Jinju roared. He stomped his foot and was about to rush out of the stone platform. Another day? You want another day? How naive. Lu Ming's cold voice rang out. The 9 ice chains rapidly lengthened and danced in the air like an inescapable net, cutting off Jinju's path of retreat. Boom! Jinju's attack landed on the ice shackles. The ice shackles only shook, but Jinju's figure was blocked. Lu Ming, what are you trying to do? Don't tell me you want to kill me. You dare? Jinju roared. He was the top genius of the Jin clan. The Jin clan was one of the top clans in the 9 Extinction Heavenly King Mansion. Lu Ming, a trash from the Qin Tian Star Field, dared to kill him? Hee hee. What answered him was Lu Ming's cold sneer. Then, Lu Ming took a step forward. His spear light was like a mountain, pressing down on Jinju. Bang! Jinju was even less of a match for Lu Ming. He was sent flying by a single move, crashing into the ice chains. He was heavily injured and coughed up blood. Whoosh! The ice shackles took the opportunity to entangle Jinju. Let me go. Lu Ming, I order you to let me go. Jinju roared. Order me? You're just a prisoner and you dare to order me around? Are you out of your mind? Lu Ming was so angry that he laughed. He waved the ice shackles and smashed Jinju heavily on the ground. Suddenly, Jinju was smashed into a dead dog. Lu Ming, you better let him go. Otherwise, my Jin clan will not let you go. You should know the power of my Jin clan in the 9 Extinction Heavenly King Mansion. Outside the arena, Jin Xing yelled and threatened Lu Ming. Kid, let me go. I don't believe you dare to kill me. Jinju roared. At this time, he still did not believe that Lu Ming would dare to kill him, especially in front of everyone. What an idiot. I'll send you on your way. Lu Ming sighed. Then, an incomparably cold murderous intent spread out. Being shrouded by this murderous intent, Jin Ju shuddered. At this moment, his heart was cold and his eyes were filled with fear. He had a feeling that Lu Ming would really kill him. Lu Ming really dared to do so. No, don't, Jin Ju roared in horror. He was finally afraid. Don't want? I want it. Lu Ming said indifferently and stabbed out with his spear, piercing through Jin Ju's glabella. Jin Ju twitched and stopped breathing. He was killed on the spot by Lu Ming. Lu Ming, outside the field, Jin Ju roared in anger. He did not expect that Lu Ming would dare to kill a top genius of the Jin clan. Was he not afraid of the Jin clan's revenge? I'll kill whoever wants to kill me. I don't care who they are. Lu Ming said coldly. He had experienced so much along the way and understood a principle. You must be ruthless to your enemies. If you have the chance to kill them, you must kill them. Because your enemies will not give up just because you let them go. On the contrary, they will take revenge even more fiercely. Even if he did not kill Jin Ju, the Jin clan would not let him go. Since that was the case, why not kill him? Jin Ju shut up. He knew that Lu Ming was a ruthless person. Threats would not be effective. Lu Ming, just you wait, Jin Ju roared in his heart as a vicious plan brewed in his heart. After killing Jin Ju, Lu Ming took his storage ring and waited quietly. A day later, a light curtain shrouded Lu Ming. Lu Ming sat cross-legged and entered a starry space. The effect of the second row of stone platforms was indeed extraordinary. Lu Ming's cultivation speed was fast. The degree of awakening of the sovereign's divine power was also increasing rapidly. 50%, 55%. Looking at Lu Ming sitting cross-legged on the stone platform, Jin Ju's eyes were filled with murderous intent. He wanted nothing more than to chop Lu Ming into pieces. Unfortunately, Lu Ming was protected by the formation. He could only think about it. This guy killed Qin Mu. After a period of time, a Qin clan prodigy ended his cultivation. He had cultivated on the stone platform for 3 years and could no longer cultivate, so he left the stone platform. Once he left the stone platform, Jin Ju told him the news. That's right. Not only did he kill Qin Mu, but he also killed the prodigy of my Jin clan, Jin Ju. Jin Ju gritted his teeth. What? He killed Jin Ju? He's so strong. The Qin clan prodigy was also shocked. This brat is a monster. He must be eliminated. Jin Ju gritted his teeth. Don't worry. The prodigy of my Qin clan, Qin Wukong, is cultivating on the second row. His divine power has already awakened to 90%. After this cultivation, he's probably very close to 100%. In addition, his divine skills have already broken through to the 8th level. It's enough to kill Lu Ming. The Qin clan prodigy said coldly. That's great. Jin Ju was also overjoyed. The person they were talking about was the Qin clan prodigy cultivating on the second row. Time flew by quickly. Soon, more than 2 months had passed. At this moment, the Qin clan prodigy, Qin Wukong, who was cultivating on the second row, woke up. Chapter 30-22. The prodigy of the Qin clan, Qin Wukong, ended his cultivation and woke up. After waking up, Qin Wukong stood up and looked at the 2 youths in the first row. Now that I have awakened 99% of my divine power, I can challenge the first row and use their power to fully awaken my divine power origin factor. Qin Wushang muttered, his eyes filled with confidence. Previously, his divine power awakening wasn't that high, so he didn't dare to challenge the first row. After a period of cultivation, he was full of confidence. Of course, he didn't dare to challenge the prodigy who had awakened his divine power origin factor. He was going to challenge the other 2. Cousin Wukong. At this moment, the prodigy of the Qin clan shouted from the crowd. What's the matter? Qin Wukong turned around and asked. Qin Mu was killed. The prodigy of the Qin clan said. Qin Mu was killed? Who was it? Which aristocratic family did it? Hearing this, Qin Wukong's body exploded with cold killing intent. His cold gaze swept across the crowd. Those who were swept by his gaze had a change in expression and their heartbeat quickened. Among the prodigies below the Divine King realm in the Starry Sky Battalion, Qin Wukong was definitely one of the top experts. It's him, Lu Ming. It's Lu Ming who killed Qin Mu. The prodigy of the Qin clan pointed at Lu Ming, who was cultivating. Subconsciously, Qin Wukong looked at Lu Ming. With one look, he couldn't help but be stunned. If he didn't remember wrongly, this seat belonged to Jin Ju. How did Lu Ming end up there? Lu Ming can kill Qin Mu? Qin Wukong's low voice sounded with some doubt. This brat is very strong. You can't just look at his cultivation. My Jin clan's prodigy, Jin Ju, was also killed by him. Jin Xing said. What? This time, Qin Wukong was truly shocked. Qin Mu was only a 9th level heaven god. However, Jin Ju wasn't to be underestimated. He was a half-step divine king, and yet he was killed by Lu Ming. This brat can't be left alive. Qin Wukong thought in his mind. This brat, what is his cultivation? Qin Wukong asked. 5th level celestial god, but his battle prowess is astonishing. He is at least equivalent to a half-step celestial king with 70 to 80% of awakened divine power. Jin Xing said. This kind of strength? Alright, leave this brat to me. Once his 3 months are up, I will challenge him and kill him here. Qin Wukong's voice was incomparably cold. Although Lu Ming could kill Jin Ju, he was also confident that he could kill Lu Ming. Now, his divine power had already been awakened to 99%. In addition, his mastery of several divine skills was also very shocking. He was confident enough. Below the Divine King realm, other than the few people who had awakened the origin divine power, he was invincible. With Brother Wukong making a move, that brat is dead for sure. Jin Xing was overjoyed. The way he looked at Lu Ming became even more ferocious. Next, Qin Wukong did not cultivate. Instead, he stood on the stone platform and waited quietly. Lu Ming was oblivious to all of this. He was fully focused on comprehending the sovereign realm's god force. As expected of the second row of stone platforms, the effects were too good. It was not something the lower rows could compare to. Lu Ming's awakening of the sovereign realm's god force was increasing rapidly. As the awakening of the sovereign realm's god force increased, so did Lu Ming's strength. Very quickly, 3 months were up. The universe disappeared, and Lu Ming opened his eyes on the stone platform. 88%. Lu Ming muttered. His awakening of the sovereign realm's god force had reached 88%. Lu Ming had only cultivated here for 9 months, and his awakening of the sovereign realm's god force had increased from 1 to 2% to 88%. If others knew about this, their jaws would drop to the ground. This speed was too shocking. I really don't know how amazing the effects of the first row are. With my current strength, I should be able to challenge the first row. Lu Ming muttered as he stood up. Bang! As soon as Lu Ming stood up, a strong pressure pressed down on Lu Ming. At the same time, a young man appeared in front of Lu Ming, staring at him coldly. This young man was none other than Qin Wukong. As soon as Lu Ming woke up, Qin Wukong rushed up to Lu Ming's stone platform. It's him. Hee, I didn't look for him, but he came looking for me. That's fine too. Lu Ming smiled. Kid, how can you still smile at a time like this? Qin Wukong said coldly. Why can't I smile? Since you're here to die, of course I have to smile. Lu Ming continued to smile. I'm here to die? Huh, it seems like you're very confident after defeating a few people. I would like to see how strong a fifth-layer heaven god like you is. Qin Wukong said coldly. As he spoke, his body emitted a blinding light. His god force burned like flames, stirring up a terrifying gust of wind that swept toward Lu Ming. An ancient and desolate aura was released. Origin Divine Force Factor. No, it hasn't awakened yet. Lu Ming's eyes narrowed, thinking that Qin Wukong had awakened his Origin Divine Force Factor. However, after sensing carefully, he realized that Qin Wukong hadn't awakened his Origin Divine Force Factor at all. However, he wasn't far from it. So strong, Qin Wukong's God Force must have awakened to 99%. Among the crowd, there were also people who were knowledgeable and could see through Qin Wukong's strength. Such an aura, he's indeed just one step away from fully awakening his Origin Divine Force Factor. This is going to be interesting. Many people were discussing. Lu Ming, a monstrous existence, could kill a half-step god king like Jin Zhu with his cultivation at the fifth-layer heaven god realm. Would he be able to fight against Qin Wukong? Bang! At this moment, Qin Wukong attacked. With a punch, a huge fist imprint blasted toward Lu Ming with shocking speed. Ancient God Body. Without hesitation, Lu Ming displayed his ancient god body. At the same time, he activated the battle character art to increase his combat strength by 4 times. Facing an opponent like Qin Wukong, Lu Ming had no choice but to give it his all. His long spear vibrated and a dazzling spear light pierced through the air, piercing toward Qin Wukong's fist imprint. Bang! The spear light and the fist imprint collided, releasing a terrifying wave of energy that swept out in all directions. Fortunately, the sky prides cultivating on the other stone platforms were protected by a large array. As the wave of energy swept past, it didn't affect them at all. Otherwise, they would have been severely injured or even killed. Wang! The spear light vibrated continuously and then exploded. At the same time, the huge fist imprint also exploded. He blocked it. Lu Ming can actually block Qin Wukong's fist. Many people were shocked. Qin Wukong's eyes narrowed. This kid is monstrous. Kill! Qin Wukong roared and pushed his god force to the maximum. The power of his 99% awakened divine force exploded, turning into a terrifying fist imprint that blasted toward Lu Ming. Chapter 30-23. Qin Wushang's strength was terrifying. His divine force had been awakened to 99%, and his power was shocking. Not only was his divine force extremely condensed, it even had a trace of the Origin Divine Force's characteristics and was filled with destructive power. With such divine force, the 7 Wounds fist was not something the Qin clan's genius could compare to. Moon Slash. Lu Ming pushed the divine force in his body to the maximum. With the 7 types of divine force as the core, he condensed them into a ball and struck out with his long spear. Boom! The two clashed for the second time, and the power was even more terrifying. The stone platform under their feet shook violently. This time, the two were still on par. It was hard to tell who was stronger. The people below the stage were extremely shocked, especially Jin Xing. When Lu Ming fought with him in the Qin Tian Star Field, although he was stronger than him, there was a limit. How long had it been since then? Lu Ming's strength had already reached such a level. This level of strength was completely capable of insta-killing him. 7 Wounds Divine Fist. Qin Wushang roared as he punched out with both fists. Fist imprints shot out from his body and pressed down on Lu Ming. Sky Splitter, Moon Slash. Lu Ming continued to use the first 2 moves of the apocalyptic 3 strikes to fight with Qin Wushang. The two fought fiercely, and in the blink of an eye, they had exchanged dozens of blows. Even after dozens of blows, it was hard to tell who was stronger. Awesome! Lu Ming became more excited as the fight went on. His battle intent grew stronger, and he became more proficient in using the apocalyptic 3 strikes. His divine force was endless, and he was not afraid of exhausting it. He could push the power of each of his moves to the maximum. As for Qin Wushang, the more he fought, the more shocked he became. Lu Ming was only a 5th-level heavenly god. With his cultivation, he thought he could easily take down Lu Ming. However, Lu Ming's strength had far exceeded his expectations. Until now, he still had not taken down Lu Ming. Looks like I have no choice but to give it my all. A glint flashed across Qin Wukong's eyes. Soon after, his figure suddenly retreated rapidly. As he retreated, a green light suddenly appeared on his body. Swoosh! In the next instant, Qin Wukong's figure disappeared. On the stone platform, a series of afterimages appeared. This was a terrifying speed-type divine skill. When it was used, the sky was filled with afterimages, and the speed was astonishing. With Lu Ming's current eyesight, it was very difficult for an ordinary speed to leave an afterimage in his eyes. To be able to leave an afterimage under his current eyesight, it could be seen how fast this speed was. It was faster than Lu Ming's eyesight. Speed Divine Skill, Level 8. Lu Ming muttered. He could tell that Qin Wukong was using a speed-type divine skill, but it had already reached the 8th level. Under Divine King, being able to cultivate a divine skill to the 8th level was already extremely impressive. For example, the Qin clan's prodigy and Jin Ju had only cultivated their divine skills to the 7th level. 7 Wounds Divine Fist. Qin Wukong's voice rang out once again. Then, from all directions, numerous fist imprints blasted towards Lu Ming, completely enveloping Lu Ming. Using a speed-type divine skill together with the 7 Wounds Divine Fist to seal off all paths of retreat, the power increased exponentially. In an instant, dozens of fist imprints blasted towards Lu Ming. Level 8 of a speed-type divine skill. You think you're the only one who has it? Lu Ming muttered. On his body, divine power surged and condensed into a Kuanpeng. This Kuanpeng was very small, only slightly bigger than Lu Ming. The Kuanpeng flapped its wings, and Lu Ming's figure disappeared from the spot. In the eyes of others, Lu Ming had also turned into afterimages, shuttling through the numerous fist imprints. His speed was not any slower than Qin Wukong's. Lu Ming's 9 Heavens Kuanpeng technique had also reached the 8th level. The 9 Heavens Kuanpeng technique was originally known for its speed and long-distance flight. But now, it was being used by Lu Ming for short-distance movement. Its power was also extremely strong, completely avoiding Qin Wukong's fist imprints. This kid's speed-type divine skill has also reached the 8th level. Damn it! Qin Wukong roared in his heart. He was truly shocked. Swoosh! His body suddenly stopped, and he retracted his fist imprints, gathering them together and rushing towards Lu Ming. In the process of rushing out, Qin Wukong opened his mouth and let out a long roar. A terrifying vibration came from his mouth. The air above Qin Wukong's mouth vibrated with visible vibrations. In the end, it turned into battle swords and slashed towards Lu Ming. Clang! Clang! Lu Ming waved his long spear to block. The battle swords slashed on the long spear, causing the long spear to vibrate continuously. Lu Ming's body trembled slightly, and he took a few steps back. What a powerful divine skill. Level 8 of a speed-type divine skill. Lu Ming's eyes narrowed slightly. Qin Wukong was indeed powerful. No wonder he was so confident. Not only had he cultivated a speed-type divine skill to the 8th level, but he had also cultivated a speed-type divine skill to the 8th level. The 8th level of a speed-type divine skill had already surpassed the 7 Wounds Divine Fist in terms of power. Die! Qin Wukong hollered. He opened his mouth and let out a long whistle. The air vibrated and formed many combat swords, slashing toward Lu Ming. Divine Dragon Dharma Idol. Lu Ming shouted, and stepped forward. 9-clawed Dragon Dharma Idol condensed one after another, a total of 7 dragons. They roared and pounced towards Qin Wukong, clashing with his battle swords. Boom! 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 The sounds of explosions continued. The 9-clawed dragon Dharma idols were no match for Qin Wukong. They trembled violently, and finally, they were split into two. However, Lu Ming used the ice shackles. The 9 ice shackles danced in the air like long snakes. Qin Wukong's battle sword slashed against the ice shackles, emitting a clanging sound. However, the ice shackles did not break apart, and the sword was blocked by the ice shackles. How is this possible? Qin Wukong was shocked. His attack-type divine skill was known for its attacking power. Moreover, he had cultivated it to the 8th level. In addition to the divine power that was at 99% awakened, its power was shocking and its destructive power was extremely strong. However, Lu Ming had blocked it. Void Splitter. Lu Ming took the opportunity to launch an attack. A spear light shot out, piercing towards Qin Wukong. Qin Wukong was shocked. He wanted to dodge, but it was too late. He could only barely avoid being hit in his vitals. Half of his body almost exploded, and blood and flesh splattered everywhere. It was a tragic sight. Lu Ming, I want you dead. Qin Wukong's eyes were blood red. His body emitted an even more terrifying aura. Boom! Qin Wukong punched out 2 consecutive times. The 2 fist imprints merged into one, emitting a dazzling blood-red light. It rushed towards Lu Ming, and its power was shocking. The power has increased by a level. It is said that the 7 wounds divine fist of the Qin clan is more powerful the more injured one is. So it is true. Lu Ming's mind raced. He had injured Qin Wukong just now, and it had allowed Qin Wukong to push the power of the 7 wounds divine fist to the maximum. Let's see how long you can last. Lu Ming's eyes were cold. He did not believe that if he beat Qin Wukong half to death, Qin Wukong would still be able to use his full strength. Shwa! Shwa! 9 ice shackles danced in the air, revolving in front of Qin Wukong, forming a defensive wall. You're tuning into the Biyao's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.